Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Chao Emo. Chapter 981-1000. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And those who want to support me, I have a Patreon channel. Get early access to video on Patreon. 981. I don't believe Nimrod is omniscient, but I need his help. In the fourth level of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod sits high on his throne, listening to Lucius's report. Finally, I detonated the molten explosives that had been pre-planted in the Mundus Oculum reactor, triggering a series of explosions. Due to the evacuation, the full results cannot be confirmed, but it is confirmed that 5 Titan Legion Divine Machines, 14 Knights, and over 30,000 enemy cybernetic automata were destroyed. Sigismund mobilized some tech priest and servitor personnel to assist in the emergency transfer of over 1,000 Mark IV systems to orbit. Power armor and over 20 Sakharan tanks, among other equipment. Nimrod nodded slightly. Open black lens bracket. Sigismund is not bad, although he failed to acquire the most valuable assets. Close black lens bracket. At least it wasn't a wasted trip, and we didn't pay any price, we just picked up some old stuff for free. Well, for loyalists, it's like new equipment. Moreover, he did not encounter the Titans as he remembered, nor did he suffer the loss of hundreds of Terminators. His gaze fell on Lucius. Having succeeded in his campaign with Mars, Lucius had already established his authority among the loyalist coalition of the Emperor's Children and the Death Guard. Even with significant changes in his physique, there would be no doubt that he underwent the same kind of body modification surgery as Bear. While Nimrod was pondering, Jokero in the first level of space took action, throwing materials such as the metal outer skin of Basmiminikans into the furnace to prepare the sequence 6 inches Dawn Paladin potion. A moment later, Lucius's body grew a head and a half taller, his muscular frame bursting out of the Mark V power armor. He felt a surge of power within him and knelt on one knee. My lord, thank you for the power you have given me. I will be your flawless blade, slaying all enemies of heresy. Open black lens bracket. Flawless blade, you certainly know how to give yourself a title beforehand. Close black lens bracket. What a coincidence, Nimrod thought to himself before giving the order. Set off immediately for Jupiter and seize your flagship. The Shadow Guard will cooperate with your actions. After redeploying the armory and having available space, return to Mars and launch an attack on Mundus Gamma. Nimrod knew that the Imperial Fists had split into 2 groups. Sigismund was heading to Mundus Oculum, while the other 2 companies, led by Camba Diaz, would attack Mundus Gamma. He had no hope of winning against the Caban robots, they would have been overwhelmed if not for the aid of 40,000 Jovian Grenadier. Diaz allowed the Jovian Grenadier to fight off the Caban robots in order to take the spoils from Mundus Gamma, at the cost of almost the entire Jovian Grenadier army being wiped out. Now that the Hazen Chamber of Commerce has followed him, Diaz only has 5,000 Jovian Grenadier, making it even less likely that he will achieve any decisive results. Lucius beamed with joy, for he had not only been granted new power, but would also receive a powerful flagship. My lord, I understand. I will fill the new warships with the spoils of Mundus Gamma. The black mist engulfed Lucius, and when he opened his eyes again, he had returned to the real world. Lucius drew his sword, struck it swiftly, deactivated the Euclidean rune, and stepped out of the door. The 3 members of the Nashka squadron, his lieutenant Solasin, the Eagle King Vespasian of the Raptor cult, and Andros the Blade of Paratine, all looked over. Andros stared at Lucius's taller and more bloated figure, and asked in surprise, Sir, what happened? You were only inside for less than half an hour. Lucius glanced at his trusted followers, unsure whether the Black Emperor would grant them power. They have no devout faith, nor are they as flawless as I am. Follow in my footsteps, and one day you may be granted power. After a few seconds of silent contemplation, Solasin spoke up to report. Lord Commander, Vespasian and Nathaniel of Twilight Raiders have sent you a message asking about your next steps. Tell them our target is Jupiter, Lucius said, walking toward the deck of Zagreus Kane, the new fabricator general appointed by the Black Emperor. I will tell them my plans later. Now, I need to change into a new set of armor. Yes, sir. Sorosan contacted the sound array supervisor and relayed Lucius's message. Lucius walked toward the gravity elevator. The 2 Nashikai members stared at his imposing figure for a moment, then bowed in respect. Lucius nodded, stepped inside, and quickly typed a series of runes on the keyboard. Click. The gravity elevator slid down rapidly, arriving at the lower deck area in an instant. After Zagreus boarded the ship, he took Sage with him. Apprentices and tech priests headed to the lower deck. From then on, the robot's roar could be heard through the decks, even by the members of the Nashikai squadron on the upper decks. As the elevator descended, the robot's roar grew louder and louder. As the floor beneath his feet vibrated and a cold mist filled the air, Lucius activated the lemon's ear filter. He stepped outside, and a red-robed tech priest with a prosthetic eye looked over warily. His mechanical tentacles swayed, and the synthesized sound of the sound array revealed a trace of respect and a hint of astonishment that could not be detected by ordinary people. Lord Lucius. Lucius nodded. I need to see the Fabricator General. Please wait a moment. Tech Priest sent a data packet in the mind space. Since the scrap code began to wreak havoc on Mars, the Mars monks of Mundus Oculum have completely abandoned their previous communication habits and replaced them with mental space. Casting. Tech Priest paused. Director, please come in. Lucius stepped inside, his vision filled with leaping sparks of electricity. The red-robed monks' mechanical arms hissed and sparked as they slid rapidly across the robots, as if engaged in a silent competition. Lucius, do you have any good news? Zagreus asked. When will Nimrod send troops to help us reclaim Mars? In an instant, the electric sparks disappeared, and the crackling sound subsided. Fabricator General, the time is not right, Lucius said. I have come here today to ask you to make me a suitable set of armor. Zagreus's gaze swept over Lucius's body. My scanner tells me that your body has undergone a 36.13% change. What happened? Lucius was hesitating whether to tell Lord Nimrod about the power he had been granted, but Zagreus had already found the answer in his memory cache. Coriel Archmagos launched a data packet in the mind space. Arkan received the secrets of Nimrod's gift, and he even completely converted his faith, regarding Nimrod as Omniscia. Upon hearing this, Lucius spoke up. That's right, Lord Nimrod is the Omniscia you worship. If you want to reclaim Mars, you must have faith in him. I don't know what Arkan got, and I don't believe Nimrod is Omniscia, Zagreus said. But I need his help. Now, I will design armor that suits you. Curiosity ignited within his mechanical body. Greater than 982. My ship has received the blessing of the true God. Thule has been orbiting the Jupiter shipyard for 6,000 years. It hangs high above the planet's gaseous surface, beyond Galilean moons Ganymede, Europa, and Io. Thule is a strangely shaped rock with very low gravity. It was hollowed out by Mars' massive drilling rig, and its interior is filled with huge tunnels, pipes, and rooms. Millions of slave laborers, drones, and acolytes toiled in the underground labyrinth, transforming it into a vast factory comprised of foundries and compressors. A massive gravity engine shaped an artificial, beating heart, its sprawling metal tendrils reaching out from the ground to support a bubble-like dome. Inside a bubble-like dome on the surface, the chapter master of the Feather of the Brush, Zadkiel, stands tall on the obsidian podium. His distinguished face radiated enthusiasm, and his gray eyes exuded confidence. The Mentor of Disorder gripped the edge of the podium, his authoritative gaze sweeping over the 30 rows of word-bearers below. The dawn has broken. To understand our destiny, heed the power of truth. 3,000 word-bearers looked up at him and shouted in unison. To understand our destiny, heed the power of truth. Mentor of Disorder slammed his fist on the podium, declaring, we will abandon hypocrisy and cast off the shackles of feigned loyalty. We have shown our true colors and displayed our glory. After he finished speaking, he turned and walked towards the large arched door behind him. 30 company commanders took the lead, leading their warriors across the reinforced resin glass of the bubble-shaped dome. A huge ship filled their vision, its hull topped with a cathedral whose spire, like a bent finger, pierced the stars. Around it, the engine soothsayer led its servants in a busy work on the scaffolding, and the steel pipes supporting the giant ship spewed out thick, high-pressure smoke. Zadkiel, sage, dressed in a deep red robe and holding a scepter, walked up to Zadkiel. Your warrior will need to be familiar with the ship in batches. No. Zadkiel smiled and shook his head. I'm going to sail my boat away. That's impossible. Sage's mechanical voice was filled with anger. Every ship must have a launch ceremony. Although your ships were built in secret, they still require the blessing of the servant Omniscia. The Fabricator General will be there in person to witness the birth of this groundbreaking warship. My ships have been blessed by the true God. Zadkiel raised his Baroque-style boxing gloves. I thanked Kelber Hal for his gift, and for that I have decided to spare your life. As Zadkiel spoke, he lightly swung his fist, slamming it into the mechanical body. Bang! Sage spun out and crashed heavily to the ground. Zadkiel led the word-bearers quickly onto the ship through the winding umbilical tube connecting the ship's loading passage and the bubble dome. The warrior of Scions of the Quill, like spreading tentacles, reaches a critical point on the furious abyss. The thrusters slowly started, propelling the Abyss-class behemoth up and down the lifting clamps. The red-robed monks retreated in panic, leaving behind bewildered and helpless slaves. The plasma engine emitted a deep roar, and a series of explosions released a string of flames that quickly spread across the dock. Elevators, assembly components, and scaffolding were blown to pieces and rained down on the ship as it rose. The heatwave burned a blue streak across the surface of Thule, and a new star rose in the darkness void. On the bridge of the HMS Abyss, rows of cogitators and the sunken command post were filled with scions of the Quill and their crew. 3 image screens surround a central pentagonal platform upon which stands the command throne. Before the throne stood 3 word-bearers. The tallest of the 3 was only 1 head shorter than Zadkiel. One of his eyes was blood red, surrounded by a cluster of scars. Zadkiel, we will follow you, and pursue your glory. Belenos was once a commando company commander, deadly and loyal. When Zadkiel expanded the chapters, he naturally became a chapter master, leading the warriors. We are all the same, Ixalan said coldly. He was the chapter priest, as well as an agitator and an expert in torture. But we should focus on the things at hand. That's right, Zadkiel said. He pulled out a data slate and tossed it to Ixalan. Your task is to immediately build the church according to the design inside and arrange every altar inside the ship. Zadkiel has obtained permission from the Black Emperor to publicly preach the Black Emperor's beliefs. The king in the shadows, his radiance will illuminate the entire Fury Abyss. Ixern connected the data slate to the cogitator next to the throne for a swift query. In asymmetrical style, with a predominantly black color scheme. I thought of Primarch Nimrod. Our destiny follows Nimrod. Zadkiel clasped his hands together. He is the Black Emperor, the only true god. Ixern and Belenos clasped their hands together, mimicking Zadkiel's gesture of bowing. Zadkiel looked down at the young Reskiel and did the same thing as them. He had a pair of obsidian eyes just like the Black Emperor's, and his eyes revealed a strong desire. He was considered his deputy. Although the honor belongs to Belenos, his loyal hound is a perfect henchman and a powerful warrior, but lacks other abilities. Reskiel, on the other hand, reminded Zadkiel of himself and the burning ambition that arose after he became the mentor of disorder. His ambition was hidden behind fervent flattery. Zadkiel had never trusted Ixalan and Reskiel and was always wary of them. Everything changed after he became the Baron of Corruption. He successfully corroded the 2 of them and also gained control of the power bestowed upon him by the Black Emperor. After completing the divinely bestowed ritual of the Black Emperor and becoming the mentor of disorder, he further used his majesty to make 3,000 word-bearers submit to his will. Zadkiel looked toward the darkness and saw Gurud Sage, dressed in a black robe and wearing a bolted chain around his neck engraved with gear symbols. He ordered, increase the plasma engine to maximum power. Yes, sir. Guroid's folded hands were the only remaining flesh on his body, but he was still corrosion. Zadkiel typed a sequence into the command throne. Navigator Esamia. Take us to Necromunda. The flight path has been locked, Esam reported. From there we will go to Abyss Port, Zadkiel said, rising to his feet to address Belenos and the other 2. We will deliver a heavy blow to them in Colonnide New District with the warships of Horus and Lorgar. The truth will surely come true. The truth will surely come true. The 3 shouted. As the Fury Abyss left Thule behind, the emergency sirens of the entire satellite sounded simultaneously. Warning readers on every command interface in the control center flashed glaring runes, and servitors flooded into every channel. 983 The corpse that crawled out of the coffin. Jupiter's satellite Thule, a food storage warehouse for slave laborers. Kyan, the 5th company commander in Order Shadow, Chapter 4, opened his eyes. His brain was working at lightning speed, and his thoughts were forming rapidly. Where am I? Wecan. Comsuper reliable. 5 seconds later, he regained his memories from before he was frozen. Open black lens bracket. I have successfully infiltrated Thule. Close black lens bracket. The Kyan and Shadow guards had previously died, having been fed a thick soup of organic ingredients and chemicals to blend their bodies into the environment. They then took the medicine prepared by Chief Apothecary. With the help of the 12th modification surgery, a flat organ was implanted at the top of the cerebral cortex, which fused with the meninges that grew into the brain, and they entered a state of suspended animation. On Thule, the slave families contracted by the Hazen Chamber of Commerce have low social status, so a clandestine method must be used to send them in. Kyan looked at the inner wall of the metal container, which was made of plastic steel and tightly sealed. The container was filled with a thick liquid. The liquid enveloping him was residue from a biological processing procedure. It came from the nutrient factory in the orbital city of Ganymede. Hazen Chamber of Commerce holds 58.19% of the shares in that factory. The millions of slave laborers in Thule needed food to survive. The thick soup, a residue of organic matter pyrolysis, departed from the rail dock, flowed downstream along the transport chain, and passed through layers of security systems. When the bioinformatics scanning field sweeps across the container, it can only detect clumps of inorganic matter. There was no sign of life whatsoever, no bioelectricity, no pulse, no temperature. Ultimately, 100 veteran, corpse collectors, were placed in metal coffins, and stored in a warehouse. Until the medicine loses its effectiveness. Their two hearts began to beat again, and blood began to flow. Kyan pulled a black weapon from the inner wall with his left hand. It resembled a broken fragment of a sword blade, without a handguard or hilt. Any weapon with a complex design could be detected by Cult of Mars, deep scan, but fragments fixed to the inner metal wall would not be exposed. Kyan slowly raised his right arm and pushed hard, causing the top cover to click and fall to the side. He climbed out, aimed at the storage tank, and vomited out the liquid inside his body. The pungent stench of the biological soup lingered, but he had been in environments that were far more foul, both physically and surreally. Kyan landed on the ground, followed by a series of low thuds. After leaving the storage room, the Order shadows heard a piercing alarm. Gatekeeper raised his arm and gently tapped his right eyebrow. The illusory light first burst forth, then rapidly rotated around a single point, collapsing inward to form a blurry, double-opening bronze door. The bronze door is covered with various mysterious patterns, giving it an indescribable sense of depth and depth. The large door swayed and slowly opened with a creaking sound. One after another, illusory figures and pale bodies emerged from the great door. The spirit guides gathered around the great door, chanting the words of the dead, to communicate with their zombie and wraith. They cannot contain the dead like the gatekeeper, but can only temporarily store their subjects within the Kyan's body. Fortunately, the disconnection was short-lived. They re-established contact within a few dozen seconds. Kyan made a gesture, and the Order shadows immediately dispersed into 10 squads. The wraiths roared up and screamed as they flew toward the surveillance cameras ahead of their path. The walker walked ahead of Order shadow, rapidly ascending along the spiderweb-like tunnel. In the security control room, Sage Larian Ten's prosthetic eye swept over the rapid crimson light, and he spat out a string of 72 bits of code. Have you contacted Fabricator General? Terra has destroyed the communication base station and resisted the sacred sang of the scrapcode, disrupting our communication links. A series of action reports reached his terminal along the Thule communications network. The fire at the dock has been extinguished. The Fury Abyss has derailed. Defenses at docks S2 and S3 have been reinforced, and two Hongji legions have taken control of the dock area. Close black lens bracket. After reading all the action reports, Layan 10 stared at the 300 surveillance screens covering the entire wall opposite him. Only one screen displays the strange intruder. Pale bodies moved forward along the passage, their flesh splattering as dense barrages of bullets fired by servitors. But those creatures identified as corpses by the bioscanners seemed to feel no pain and were unaffected by the loss of flesh and blood, relentlessly advancing. Their tall, slender figures, resembling dead Eldar aliens, moved with elegant and swift steps, suddenly appearing before the servitor. The broken longsword, gleaming with a dark green light, slashed down, and a row of servitors fell instantly. The mechanical tentacles of the Layan-10 extended from its shoulder and rapidly tapped on the control panel. A rune-bearing army of giant branches is approaching the target from all directions. Invading enemies, whether they are real corpses or not, will be devoured by omniscious wrath. A torrent of molten metal swept into Kyan's field of vision, and waves of promethium engulfed dozens of Eldar undead. Amidst the billowing smoke, the pieces of skin and flesh hanging from the body were charred black. The pale skeletons seemed to be stuck in the mud, staggering forward in the waves of fire, stirring up a sky full of Mars. A skeleton creaked and then exploded with a bang. A chilling whirlwind, cold enough to freeze a person, suddenly arose and spread outwards amidst the molten flow. Call. A cold wind propelled several Eldar zombies, who pounced in front of cybernetic automata and swung their pale bone swords down. Whoosh whoosh. 3 more zombies fell, and a chilling hurricane of death swept across the surrounding area. The ground froze rapidly, covered in frost. The Eldar zombies swiftly crossed the lava flow and charged toward the cybernetic automata. Filled with resentment, they brandished their swords and slaughtered the mechanical creations before them. Kyan suddenly sensed something, and his gaze swept across the tunnels at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. He suddenly raised his hand and lightly tapped his brow. A phantom bronze door appeared and creaked open. Amidst a series of shrill screams, a vengeful spirit with outstretched wings flew out and rushed towards the tunnel. A dark green feather grew from Kyan's armpit. Feathers spread and grew along the sides, covering them in an instant. This stemmed from the powerful vengeful spirit that entered his body from the Sonam River when he became the gatekeeper. With its dark green wings flapping, Kian soared into the air, following the clues of its inspiration, and flew toward the tunnel at the 11 o'clock position. Da. The alien vengeful spirit's logging gun fired dark green bullets. The bullets flew and struck the steel body of the cybernetic automata, seemingly without any resistance, before penetrating its steel shell. A bullet struck the energy engine, and a scarlet light immediately shone from within the steel shell. Immediately, the body exploded, blasting the dozen or so cybernetic automata around it into a pile of parts. Another bullet struck the steel skull, and a ghostly green light exploded within the control chip. Bang! The malfunctioning servitor system crashed down. Kian swung his arms, stretched out his body, and feathers spread rapidly, covering his entire body. His body broke free from the pull of the gravity generator inside the tunnel and soared outwards like a bird. The cybernetic automata raised their weapons, and streams of molten flame shot onto his body. Bang bang bang. Amid a series of loud explosions and collisions, the dark green wings gradually darkened, turning from dark green to grayish green. As his feathers turned charred black, Kian flew to the ground, followed closely by hundreds of cybernetic automata. Kian looked around and immediately saw two pillars of fire shooting into the sky. The signal for the Black Emperor's decree has been lit. Greater than 984 Anglo's Conqueror and Lorder's Law of Faith, I'm about to become awesome. The airdrop pods, like raindrops, pelted the hidden dock on Thule planet, resembling a falling meteor shower. Commander of Twilight Raiders, Nathaniel Garo leaps to the ground and immediately sees the towering column of fire rising from the exploding fuel tank. A dazzling blue beam of light streaked past the pillar of fire and hurtled straight toward the bubble-like dome. Nathaniel raised his hand and fired a bomb, simultaneously drawing his finely crafted power sword, Libertas. They are Order Shadow, provide support. The Twilight Raiders raised their bolter and unleashed a barrage of bullets at the cybernetic automata. Nathaniel swung the sword Libertas, drawing arcs of death. Caleb Allen led the Honor Guard members, following in his footsteps. The cybernetic automata's hydraulic bodies rotated, and their beam weapons spewed intense light, striking the last batch of Iron Cavalry Terminator armor forged by Mundus Oculum. Amidst a thunderous roar, the cutting beam struck the brand new armor. Sparks flew, and the armor was charred black, but the Cataphractii Terminators continued their advance. They followed the ancient fighting creed of the 14th Legion, standing in neat rows and advancing relentlessly. Nathaniel gazed at the cybernetic automata bursting into the dome and strode forward. He flipped his wrist, and Libertas flew. The gleaming blue blade snapped and drew arcs. As Nathaniel fought fiercely, a supernatural, chilling hurricane suddenly pierced through his Iron Cavalry Terminator armor and struck his body. He followed his intuition and looked at the bubble-like dome from which the cold wind was blowing. The rows of servitors stood frozen in place, as if their systems had crashed. Open black lens bracket psionic, close black lens bracket. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. He knew that Order Shadow had numerous psychers, who were the primary judgment targets of the Council of Nicaea. His father vehemently denounced the dangers of psychic powers, eventually gaining the Emperor's approval to issue a ban. Nathaniel gathered his thoughts. Now was not the time to dwell on the Emperor's decree. To fight the Warmaster and the traitors, they need weapons, including psionic powers. He strode forward, swinging his sword with increasing ferocity. Bang! The moment Nathaniel stepped into the bubble dome, it was as if he entered another world. Crack! His boots shattered the solid ice, and his goggles fogged up with ice. My lord, Caleb's voice rang out. There were only 7 of them, and they were not wearing armor. Nathaniel's gaze swept over the 7 burly warriors, lingering on their hands. Some of them carried laser guns, while others carried swords with blades the size of combat daggers. Clearly, they used stolen, unsuitable weapons to fight against thousands of cybernetic automata. Open black lens bracket. The powerful librarian truly possesses astonishing destructive power. Close black lens bracket. Perhaps we truly need their strength to win this war. As he pondered, a warrior with skin as pale as the death guards and radiating coldness walked up to him. His gaze lingered for a moment on a dark red dot and a blurred emblem amidst the charred black before he spoke. Are you Lord Nathaniel Garo? Yes. Nathaniel suppressed his instinctive, intense aversion to psychers stemming from Legion culture. His gaze swept over the wreckage scattered on the ground. Your squad's fighting was impressive. Nathaniel's eyes suddenly widened as he saw an Order Shadow crouching beside his fallen comrade. Order Shadow whispered something in a language he didn't understand, then broke off a pale finger from the corpse. The fingers were surrounded by swirling black shadows, seemingly possessing some kind of peculiar energy. Open black lens bracket. Is the Death Order Shadow a psyker? Close black lens bracket. Are his fingers relics imbued with spiritual energy? Thank you for your praise. Order Shadow walked up to Nathaniel and blocked his view. The gift your father prepared for you is right outside, Order Shadow said, walking outside. Nathaniel didn't ask any further questions. Given his unfamiliarity with the Order Shadow, he chose to respect their culture at this point. He followed Order Shadow toward the arched door. A ship even larger than the Endurance came into view. Its ship thrusts out like a long spear, its massive body resembling outstretched wings, showcasing the power of its mechanical form. The three massive pheasant-shaped decks are as sharp as the river Styx trident in the legends of ancient Terra, with densely packed mine-laying gun emplacements on the dark sides. Defensive gun towers are densely packed on the back and flank of the ship, and the recessed torpedo tubes contain explosive destructive power. I heard from Lucius that Fabricator General secretly built a warship even more powerful than the Gloriana-class battleship. At the time, I didn't believe it, but now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I know that what he said is true. He looked at Order Shadow. Lord Nimrod, are you really giving me this warship? That's right, Lord Nathaniel, you should take possession of your flagship immediately. Perhaps you should start by naming it. Nathaniel nodded after hearing Order Shadow's advice. In the tradition of Twilight Raiders, we call each other the Unbroken. Lord Nimrod guided us to receive this gift, and we will forever remember the gift bestowed upon us by King Vostroya. I have decided to name it the Unbreakable Monarch. The Twilight Raiders chanted in unison, Your Majesty, may you be invincible. Father, may you be invincible. The Order Shadows shouted in unison. The fourth layer of space is the Nation of Disorder. Lucius knelt on one knee. My lord, Nathaniel has acquired an Abyss-class warship, which he named the Unbreakable King in gratitude to you. My new flagship will be named the King's Blade. Nimrod looked down at Lucius, who aspired to become his flawless blade, and nodded slightly. Lorgar, with the loss of the Blessed Lady and the Trinity Prayer, your fleet strength has been greatly reduced, and it is no match for mine. Even compared to the Imperial Fists, their only advantage lies in numbers. After Lorgar became the current spokesperson for 4 vendors, he vigorously developed the fleet. Before the Great Birthday celebration, the number of warships had exceeded the 1,500 warships of the Imperial Fists. He also acquired 3 Abyss-class battleships built by Kelber Hal for Horus, which, in turn, surpassed the Imperial in quality. Fist. However, all 3 Abyss-class destroyers are now superior to themselves. Open black lens bracket him. If the Lorgar still intends to attack Guilliman's territory, then I'll be helping him out. Close black lens bracket. Nimrod recalls that the Blessed Lady and the Trinity Prayer attacked Amatra. The barrage of firepower easily destroyed one of the worlds with the most sophisticated Imperial orbital defense system, blasting Amatra to pieces. Open black lens bracket Lorgar, if your flagship Faith Law is destroyed by Guilliman's retribution in Nicera, you will not have Trinity Prayer as your new flagship. Close black lens bracket. It's such a shame to destroy it. When we killed Angron, we might have had a chance to take down Angron's Conqueror and Lorgar's Law of Faith as well. At least one big ship is needed. While Nimrod pondered, Lucius continued his report. Fabricator General returned to Terra with Cayenne. He hoped to get help from the Sigillite and the Council of Terra to reclaim Mars. After the Hazen Chamber of Commerce took over the Thule shipyard, 52,000 Jovian Grenadier have joined us. Very well, return to Mars immediately and carry out your final mission there, Nimrod ordered. Break through the rebels' largest manufacturing complex, Mundus Gamma. Quote, 985 Sigismund, we must sacrifice Jovian Grenadier. To the south of Mount Olympus on Mars, the Taurus mountain wilderness stretches for thousands of kilometers, with one side rising abruptly from a series of steep cliffs before descending to the vast lands of the Syrian plateau. To the south of the desolate land lies Mundus Gamma, Mars' largest foundry complex. After the destruction of Mundus Oculum, it became both the largest foundry and the one with the highest production capacity. Smoke filled the entire Syrian plateau, and the furnaces roared incessantly, forging weapons and equipment for Warmaster's army. The new armor, unknown to most Astartes, filled the test temple, where tech priests were busy with final adjustments. After the first wave of landing launched by 2 companies led by Campa Diaz, commander of the 50th Company of the Imperial Fists, was repelled. Instead of launching another hasty attack, he gathered the first batch of airdropped assault troops and then requested support from Sigismund, who was collecting weapons at the Tycho Brahe ammunition depot, via the Legion's dedicated channel. Diaz gazed through the red dust of Mars at the formidable walls of Mundus Gamma, deciding to employ a cautious strategy to break through Lucas Crumb's defenses. Imperial Fists, from the perspective of seasoned defense builders, mark runes in the tactical interface. The reconnaissance team was the first to move out, heading towards the position carefully chosen by Diaz, raising bolter and aiming it at the city wall. A fierce volley of fire accurately hit the servitor who was retaliating. At the same moment that mechanical limbs were scattered, the Imperial fists, who were in the main attack, acted quickly. The heavy weapons squad's laser cannons unleashed blinding beams of light, striking the tower that Diaz had selected. The yellow armor vibrated as the missile launcher fired 4 missiles simultaneously, trailing brilliant flames that covered the area around the cannon tower. The night sky bursts into flames the moment a breach is torn in the defensive line. 100 airdrop pods streaked across the sky and crashed into the outer area of Mundus Gamma. Imperial fists leapt out of the door and immediately unleashed a volley of explosives. The deafening explosion blasted the combat servitor into a pile of debris. The Volax-type cybernetic automata's counterattack was also overwhelmed by the dense barrage of bullets. The explosive swept across the area like a tidal wave, knocking down one cybernetic automata after another. Amidst the waves, the heavy domi tower mech stood firm. The diamond projectile struck the ceramic armor shell and was immediately deflected, exploding into bursts of flame. The multi-purpose missile launcher fires commonly used Flame Fang missiles manufactured by the Restoration Order. As soon as the missile leaves the launch bay, the unstable propellant inside the core components ignites spontaneously upon contact with air. Boom boom boom. A Flaming Fang missile whistled as it crashed into the tower-shaped building, causing it to collapse in a violent explosion. Another Flaming Fang missile struck the yellow armor, instantly releasing deadly fragments from within. The Mark I expeditionary power armor exploded with a deafening roar, and the Imperial fists were torn into a pool of blood missed by thousands of fragments. The Imperial fists immediately sprang into action, knowing that the Domi Tower-type cybernetic automata could not catch up with Astartes in the complex terrain. Although the Domi Tower is larger and faster than the Fort Star, which is also an assault-oriented type, it is not as flexible as the Astartes. They circled the pillars and furnace, rushing quickly toward their primary target, the outer door. The Dominican Tower-type cybernetic automata took a giant step, causing the ground to rumble and tremble. The force field of the gravity hammer tore everything in its path, ripping apart metal pillars. One by one, the bubbles chased after the yellow armored warrior. They collided with each other, rapidly merged together, and their diameter increased nearly 3 times. Imperial fists spread faster than bubbles, and the demolition team, under cover of fire, was the first to reach the base of the city wall and slam the molten metal bombs onto the hinge controller. The yellow armored warriors inside and outside the city door retreated to both sides. As the brief countdown reached 0, a blazing pillar of fire rose from the east gate of Mundus Gamma. The hinge melted into ashes in the towering flames, and the black ash drifted in the wind. The armored door on the outer wall collapsed and crashed to the ground with a loud thud. The ground trembled and rumbled as Diaz led the first assault team into Mundus Gamma. He opened the communication channel and issued the order: seize the warehouse and eliminate the enemy. The yellow armored warriors charged toward the armored containers, searching for weapons to fight the heavy machine gunners. Bang! A Sakaran tank crashed through its metal shell, revealing chains binding the mechanical behemoth hanging from its armored body. Imperial Fist slowly rotated the cannon tower, figuring out how to use the new equipment. Primarch, the new main battle tank, developed through a collaboration between Ferrus Manus, Nimrod, and Adeptus Mechanicus, is being produced by Mars in accordance with Warmaster's will, with priority given to his allies. Many legions, including the Imperial Fists, have not yet been equipped with it on a large scale. Boom! The vehicle shook violently, and molten hot liquid seeped into the interior, causing the crew members to break out in a cold sweat. The gunner slammed down the fire button, and a blazing laser beam shot out. The dazzling beam of light pierced the gravitational field and slammed into the Dom Tower-type cybernetic automata. Ceramic shards flew everywhere, and the mechanical body crashed to the ground. The tanks of Shikaran gradually moved from stumbling and bumping to steady driving, forming an iron torrent that advanced into the city. Diaz gave the order for Jovian Grenadier to land, move the weapons and equipment from the occupied area, and then lead the team toward the ammunition depot, the most important strategic target in East Borough. At the same moment he saw the massive cylindrical building, the ground rumbled and trembled violently. 10-meter-tall, sea-green mechs surged forth from the front, their spherical chassis supported by tracks, their scarlet mechanical eyes fixed on the Imperial Fists. The reconnaissance team warrior immediately raised the hot melt gun they had just seized, aimed it at several mechanical constructs, and pulled the trigger. Intense molten liquid shot onto the sea-green body. Mars flew everywhere, but the mechanical bodies stood still, raising their mechanical arms. A devastating beam of radiation struck the Mark II steel-type power armor. The yellow armor of the 4 Emperor Fist warriors quickly dimmed, just like the machines on the other side, as if they had been soaked in corrosion seawater for a long time and had been neglected. Bang! Diaz watched as the 4 runes vanished instantly, then looked at the hundreds of machines that were constantly pouring out and gave the order. They are equipped with individual protective shields. Sakaran, fire! Boom boom boom! Beams of light slammed into the sea green machinery. With a deafening roar, the beam of light engulfed the 5 machines. The 3 prosthetic eyes of hailed machinery flashed in unison, locking onto the Shikaran tank. The tracks roared, and the steel arms rose up like a jungle. Black flames billowed out, converging into a terrifying sea of fire that engulfed the Sakaran tanks one after another. A pillar of fire shot into the sky, and flames carrying steel fragments flew in all directions. Diaz quickly conceived a battle plan in his mind and then marked the command relay station at the 2 o'clock position. 10th Company, draw the machine gunners away. Everyone else, follow me and attack to destroy the command relay station. Once the command relay station is destroyed, the Sage will be unable to precisely control the cybernetic automata. Cybernetic automata, operating under automated defense protocols, will suffer a significant reduction in combat effectiveness. The Imperial Fists of the 10th Company formed a neat line, raised their plasma guns and thermal guns, and unleashed a barrage of fire on the sea green machinery. The intense sunlight shone down on the charging sea green machinery, causing the individual protective shields to crackle. With a deafening roar, the protective shield shattered, and the molten rays struck several of the sea green machines. Several pillars of fire shot into the sky, and the shattered mechanical body scattered everywhere. The terrifying black flames released by the sea green machinery swept across the yellow front line. Fireworks engulfed the Mark I Chuan-I steel-type power armor, mercilessly burning the Imperial Fists' bodies to ashes. With each step Diaz took, several black runes would slide across the tactical display screen on his helmet. In the brief 500-meter charge, 200 warriors of the 10th Company had already perished. Fortunately, their sacrifice was worthwhile. The war engine controlling Sage had not yet reacted, and the intercepting fire of the cybernetic automata failed to stop their advance. Thermal bomb, countdown 20 seconds. Diaz shouted in the command channel. As soon as he finished speaking, streaks of eerie green light appeared. An ominous beam of radiation grazed past them, and the 49th warrior of the 50th Company fell. A sense of foreboding washed over Diaz. The new machine was reacting too fast, unlike the cybernetic automata that operated according to a fixed program. But looking at the tower building so close by, he decided to continue with his plan. He raised his hot melt gun and launched an attack on the sea green cybernetic automata. 3 demolition squads rushed towards the tower, while the remaining warriors of the 50th Company raised their weapons and launched an attack on the cybernetic automata. Black flames rolled in, and one after another, the yellow-armored warriors fell. The adjutant led the demolition team quickly toward the tower. Just as they were 100 meters away from the tower, 2 sea green mechanical vehicles emerged from both sides. A mocking glint flashed in the crimson prosthetic eye, and a pillar of black fire shot out. The jets of flame struck the right hands of the Imperial Fists with pinpoint accuracy. Boom boom boom. The molten metal bomb was detonated. Open black lens bracket ambushed within. These machines, abhorring intelligence, close black lens bracket. An unbelievable thought flashed through Diaz's mind. The Emperor had long ago forbidden the abomination of intelligence. The rebels have become so depraved that they are mass-producing hateful intelligence. Diaz looked at the surging abominations, then glanced at the remaining 50 yellow runes on his tactical goggles, and gave the order. Scatter and retreat. Remaining Imperial Fists warriors, immediately separate and retreat. The crimson prosthetic eyes, filled with aversion to machines, swept across the area, instantly forming hunting squads to hunt down Imperial Fists. Diaz retreated quickly while firing to draw the abomination's fire. One after another, the abomination machines, filled with rage, joined the ranks of those who besieged him. Boom! A crimson beam of light struck Diaz a few meters in front of him, and the shockwave slammed the yellow armor into the ground. Dozens of crimson beams struck Diaz, and the abomination machines swarmed around him, raising their mechanical arms. Blinding beams of light suddenly shot out and struck the abomination machine. A familiar figure simultaneously leapt forward, wielding his sword to slash at the abomination machine. Amid a series of cracking sounds, Sigismund swung his sword repeatedly. Bang! With a piercing bang, the blade pierced into the abomination machine's round belly. Sigismund withdrew and retreated, his mechanical remains crashing to the ground. Diaz refused his help and got up from the ground. Sigismund, we must retreat. He glanced to his right at the dozen or so Jovian grenadier engulfed in black flames. I will order Jovian Grenadier to hold the line and buy us time. We used the time to take all the spoils. 986 Sigismund, you seem to need help. Sigismund looked at Camba Diaz, and the image of Euphrates Chiller holding the imperial icon flashed through his mind. Was he going to disobey Primarch's orders again, and even sacrifice those mortal auxilia to escape? After his father and the Sigillite confirmed the news of the Warmaster's betrayal brought by Acton Cruz, he was chosen as the commander of the punishment fleet. He met Chiller before he prepared to set off. Chiller told him that Horus would come to Terra and that he had to stay there, as his Gene father needed him in the final moments. The visions released by Chiller showed him another option: he would die under the light of an unknown star, be forgotten forever, and the Empire would perish. Chiller also told him that if he did not choose death, he would be able to fight an endless battle. His resolve wavered, and he begged his father to allow him to stay by his side and hand over command of the punitive fleet to someone else. This is the first time he has refused his father's appointment. Now, will he once again accept the fate of failing to complete his father's mission? No, Sigismund said resolutely, roaring as he swung his sword, deflecting the incoming blade. We must complete father's mission. Sigismund, look around. Lucas Crumb's abominations number in the thousands. Templars and Terminators could kill one, even 100. But there is absolutely no way we could kill all the abomination machines. Sigismund silently surveyed the battlefield. A Templar knight swung his sword at the chassis of an abomination mech, only to be engulfed in a swarm of black flames and instantly reduced to ashes. Another Cataphractii Terminator was sliced into pieces by a dozen beams of radiation. On the tactical interface, one yellow rune after another slowly disappeared. We must retreat immediately and take all the weapons and equipment we can with us back to Terra. This is the best way for us to carry out our father's orders to the greatest extent possible under the current circumstances. The Terra Sentinels and the Empire need them. Sigismund roared as he plunged his sword into the spherical chassis of the abomination machine, venting his rage before seriously considering Diaz's words. Diaz was known even among the most stoic legions for his taciturn nature and cautious actions. This was the first time Sigismund had seen him explain so patiently. He also knew that his father had chosen Diaz to come with him in the hope that Diaz could calm his anger from the battle. Seeing that Sigismund remained silent, Diaz opened the broadband communication channel and coldly issued orders. Jovian Grenadier, establish a defensive position and hold. Diaz switched communication channels and issued commands to Imperial Fists. Retreat, and take all the weapons and equipment we can carry with us. You go first, Sigismund said, striding towards the flag. Hanging above it was the body of a corpse covered in tattered yellow power armor. Blood flowed down the flagpole and pooled on the ground. Sigismund's eyes turned red, and he rushed to the flagpole, raising his fist and slamming it down. Bang! The flagpole snapped, and the bodies of the Imperial Fists fell with a whoosh. Sigismund raised his arm, ready to catch the falling body. Black flames rolled in, engulfing the yellow armor. The bodies of the Imperial Fists crashed into the black sea of fire and were immediately engulfed by the flames. The flames engulfed Cataphractii Terminator, and the Palatine Aquila, a gift from the Emperor, hanging from his knees, burned into a wisp of black smoke. Sigismund strode out of the flames, his yellow armor charred black. He roared as he charged toward the evil, abomination intelligence, his communication channel crackling with intermittent sounds. They destroyed the base station. They're spoofing communication signals, we've been ambushed. They don't fight like the commanding mechs that Tycho Brahe repeatedly destroyed. They don't follow limited combat algorithm instructions, they have no constraints. Their blood-stained bodies used dead Astartes as bait. Their hungry, greedy, and hateful intelligence grows stronger with each battle. Sigismund stared at the red light that flickered like a human eye and thrust his sword out in disgust. Sizzle. A blue force field slices through the spherical chassis, causing the abhorrent machinery to tip over. Sigismund spun his sword, slicing through the three crimson prosthetic eyes, and then leapt backward. Boom! The mechanical body crashed down in front of him. The ground rumbled and trembled as Sigismund charged toward the nearest yellow rune. He will be the last Imperial Fists to retreat. Sigismund moved among the yellow lines, repelling the sea-green waves and enabling the Imperial Fists to retreat in an orderly fashion. The 58th Abomination machine fell before him. Sigismund glanced back and retreated to the Imperial Fists of the collapsed outer wall of door, then looked towards the distant, towering central area. He silently watched the beams of radiation shoot towards the warehouse to his right, engulfing the plasma beams fired by Jovian Grenadier. Boom! The walls collapsed with a crash, and an ominous light instantly enveloped Jupiter. Warrior turned into blood. Sigismund paused, gazing at the warehouse ruins. Suddenly, a blinding light tore through the towering column of black smoke. Looking out from Sigismund, he saw the purple-gold gunboat swooping down, raining down airdrop pods like a storm. Diaz's muffled voice came through his communication channel. The Death Guard, the Emperor's children, didn't they return? I don't know. Sigismund strode forward. But I've decided to fight alongside them for the time being. Sigismund took a long run up, leapt up, and swung his sword, slashing at a mechanical arm. The mechanical arm, along with the Templar knight pierced by the spikes, crashed to the ground. Sigismund landed and immediately thrust out a sword. The whistling blade sliced through the chassis, and he spun the blade, piercing through the mechanical body in the same way. Roar! Sigismund braced himself with his left arm and his body shot backward. Amidst the earth's rumbling and trembling, a familiar, arrogant voice rang out. Sigismund, you seem to need help. Sigismund looked in the direction of the sound, and his eyes immediately narrowed. Lucius, what's wrong with you? Lucius looked completely different from when he was 11 days ago. Lucius was a head taller than him, taller and more robust than any Astartes he had ever seen. He wore iron cavalry Terminator armor, purple armor with a gleaming sword blade instead of Palatine Aquila on the chest. The Emperor's children following behind him no longer wore the insignia they once took pride in, but instead had new coats of arms painted on their chests. Lucius did not answer Sigismund's question, but instead said, "Our goal is to destroy Mundus Gamma." After he finished speaking, he strode forward. Sigismund watched Lucius's retreating figure, clad in armor heavier than any iron cavalry Terminator armor, yet Lucius moved with astonishing speed, overtaking the Emperor's children in their new armor in an instant. 987 Lucius is so powerful, how did he create gleaming blades and armor out of thin air? After giving the order to attack, Mundus Gamma and Sigismund strode into the city. The sea-green mechanical wreckage was scattered along the way. His gaze swept over the surroundings, taking in every trace. The footprints left by the combat boots, the disruption field brand of the abhorrent mechanical port. The wreckage was pieced together and pulled back up from the ground. A swordsman clad in purple armor, wielding two swords, strode swiftly, his swords flashing across the ground. His steps were light and agile, sometimes leaping into the air, sometimes swooping down. Horizontal sweep, diagonal slash, vertical chop, straight thrust, strike. The blue blade spun, drawing precise and deadly strikes. Sigismund's eyes flashed with a sharp, sword-like light, his adrenaline surged, and he ran faster and faster. He traveled at breakneck speed, but no matter how fast he sped up, he could never catch up with Lucius, and could only see the remnants of the battle. A familiar building suddenly came into his view. The massive cylindrical building was a key strategic objective set by Camba Diaz, a mission assigned by his father, and an ammunition depot in East Borough. Sigismund glanced around, and the Emperor's children jumped backpack, clad in new armor, spewed flames and soared into the air, hurtling towards the center. Jovian Grenadier drove a trailer loaded with containers toward the heavy transport ship that had crushed the building. He turned on his communicator and spoke to Diaz. Your target has already been breached by Emperor's children, don't waste your time. Choose a new target and take the spoils from the outer area. The communication channel went silent, and just as Sigismund thought there was interference, Diaz's voice came through. I see. I have checked the drop zones for Emperor's children and Death Guard, and they are concentrated in the central areas of all directions. I will advance in a circular pattern along the outer perimeter and take away all the supplies from the warehouses. After hanging up the communication, Sigismund rushed towards the central area. One after another, transport ships roared into the sky, laden with spoils of war, and flew toward orbit. As Sigismund stepped into the central area, the gray-armored warrior began to appear in his line of sight. Death Guard relentlessly advanced towards the billowing black flames spewed by the abominable, sea-green machine, its power sword swinging in unison, striking the spherical base. Jovian Grenadier deployed their lines on both flanks of Death Guard, unleashing a barrage of plasma beams. The burst of intense light tore apart the abominable machines that had been flanking them from both sides. Dark green beams of radiation chased the swift purple figure, and the Emperor's children, like circling eagles, swooped down. Sigismund did not join their battle. Instead, he charged straight toward the Forged Temple, where black flames soared into the sky. Boom! A monstrous abomination crashed through the wall, and 3 crimson prosthetic eyes were pinned to Sigismund's body. The 10-meter-tall abomination machine swung its arms, wielding crimson blades even larger than Sigismund's, and brought them down upon the head. Amidst the deafening explosion, Sigismund advanced instead of retreating. It lunged into the shadows beneath the abomination mech, its blue blade whistling as it slashed towards the abomination mech's chassis. Click! The mechanical wrist of the abhorrent sword spun like a windmill, crashing down onto the power sword. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion of energy, Sigismund was blasted away. Bang! Sigismund bent his knees slightly to steady himself. The tracks of the abhorrent machine rumbled, the chassis spun, and the blade on its left arm swept across with a whooshing sound. Sigismund shrugged and retreated, then pounced again, his sword spinning like lightning. He launched his next attack before he could even react to the mechanical urges. Sigismund's rapid attacks, so fast that even the abomination machines couldn't keep up, overwhelmed its evolution after its birth. The three prosthetic eyes of the abhorrent machine flashed rapidly red, and it suddenly swung its left arm and charged forward with a whooshing sound. Sigismund dodged to the side, raised his sword, and slashed at his wrist. The abomination machine abruptly released its grip on the blade, its large hand forcefully seizing the gleaming edge. The disruption field hissed and roared, shredding the mechanical hand into clumps of debris. Disgusted by the machine, he disregarded his damaged left hand, raised his right arm high with the sword blade, and brought it down with a whoosh. Sigismund abruptly released his grip on the blade and rolled on the spot. The sword slammed into the ground with a thud, creating a crack several meters wide. Sigismund flipped and leapt up, caught his power sword, and pounced on the ground, slashing the sphere in two. Boom! Sigismund bypassed the abomination and, although he killed the melee-savvy abomination, he also sensed its terrifying rate of intelligence growth. They grew rapidly in battles against Astartes, constantly improving their combat intelligence. Their evil hatred of intelligence drives them to pay any price to win. Sigismund, lost in thought, entered Forge Temple. He looked toward the center of the temple, where an emperor's child in purple and gold armor and a death guard in gray armor, each wielding a power sword, were fighting against a two-handed abomination machine wielding a sword. They wandered between the columns on both sides, dealing with the machines they hated. In the center of the temple, a swift figure launched a rapid attack around three abomination machines. The dazzling blade in Lucius's hand deflected a crimson blade several times its diameter. His movements were so fast they were dazzling, and he single-handedly suppressed three abomination machines. Is Lucius really that strong? Sigismund had not paid any attention to Lucius before. Akerduana was the chief swordsman of the Emperor's Children. He, along with Thierry Vieira and Howard Finder from Order Shadow, Ezekiel Abaddon from Sons of Horus, Radron from Blood Angels, and Khan from World Eaters, are the true warriors who can be compared to him. As Sigismund pondered, his two hearts began to pump, and he strode toward the battlefield. Hearing footsteps behind him, Lucius leapt away to avoid the incoming blade, and then saw that the person was Sigismund. I am the flawless blade of the Black Emperor. I must fulfill the Black Emperor's divine decree. I will not allow anyone else to share my glory. Lucius decides to kill three Kaban robots before Sigismund joins the battle. The armor of Dawn Paladin glowed with the brilliant light of dawn, and it suddenly sprang up from the ground, rushing straight towards a Kaban machine. Two mechanical wheels spun, wielding sword blades that slashed at the dawn armor. Bang! Bang! With a deafening roar, Lucius's two swords pierced simultaneously into the central mechanical giant eye. He twisted his arms, and the sword blade whistled as it slid away. Sparks flew everywhere, and Lucius suddenly felt his hands sink. The twin swords were caught in a dense network of mechanical circuits, and at the same time, the dawn light emanating from his body was torn apart by a scarlet beam. Lucius released his twin swords and kicked the machine in the eye area below the Kaban machine with both legs, using the momentum to leap into the air. Dawn Paladin clasped his hands together, all his spirituality surging from his palms, and a blinding light suddenly pierced through the temple. Archmagos Lucius looked up at the sky and saw that Lucius had suddenly acquired a heavy, broad, and dazzlingly bright greatsword, like the legendary Emperor's sword that was burning fiercely. Lucius flipped and landed, heading straight for Archmagos Crumb. The ground rumbled and shook as a Kaban robot stood in front of Crumb. Crumb watched as Lucius lunged at the greatsword, crashing into the two raised crimson swords. Boom! He spun his sword, deflecting another massive sword that came slashing down. As Crumb's logic engine, Scrapcode, clashed with increasing contradictions, he summoned the three most evolved and powerful Kaban robots. Each of them killed more than 10 Astartes. Lucius actually broke through their guards. The huge backpack on Crumb hissed, the pipes in his ribs and the cables that wrapped around his body vibrated, dragging him off the ground. Bang! He watched as Lucius crashed to the ground, and two Kaban robots pounced on him from both sides. Dawn Paladin, Lucius knelt on one knee and plunged the Sword of Dawn into the ground. Click! A series of dawn-like points of light emerged from the gleaming sword. The light shot into the sky, transforming into a hurricane. Sigismund paused, and a dazzling light burst forth before his eyes, sweeping across the surroundings. Lucas Crumb's rising body was engulfed and torn apart by the light. The two trucks made a series of loud knocking noises as their chassis shattered and flew into pieces. Boom, boom. As the dust settled, Sigismund stared intently at Lucius, who was incredibly powerful. How did he conjure up gleaming swords and armor out of thin air? I see in a remembrancer a light and power similar to your blade and armor. She claimed to be a follower of the god emperor. You're like her. Lucius shook his head and scoffed. I'm not as stupid as her. Open black lens bracket bullshit god emperor, close black lens bracket. There is only one true god in this world. 988 besides you, who else can convince the other titans not to betray us? The first day of the 31st millennium, 006. After the destruction of Mundus Oculum, Mars' largest foundry, deafening explosions echoed across the Syrian plateau on the other side of the labyrinth of eternal night. Mundus Gamma burned fiercely, sending plumes of black smoke soaring into the sky. Open black lens bracket. Remember this website's domain, Taiwan Novel Network. It has a large collection of books, you can read them all, close black lens bracket. At the same time, the Imperial-class Titan Aquila Ignis of the Legio Mortis also set foot on the slope of the northern crater of Mount Ulysses. Ipluvine Maxima Archmagos was one of Mars' most senior sages, who built a vast array of furnace reactors on the Tower of the Sith. For centuries before the signing of the Treaty of Olympia, he linked various clans and foundries through ancient treaties, ensuring the harmonious coexistence of different groups with conflicting needs. He also provided supplies and gained loyalty from numerous warrior orders, including the powerful Titan Legion. Of the many Titan Legions, the most powerful and the most closely connected is the Storm Titan Legion. Storm Lord Indians Cavallerio's Warmaster-class Titan Storm God, Gatling guns sweeping away the Warhounds charging into the refinery. Titan. The devastating barrage of bullets knocked the Warhounds to the ground, its armored shell cracking in flames, and building debris tumbling around it. Cavalieri fired repeatedly, his steel body exploding into bursts of flames and billowing black smoke. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced his body, and he felt his legs, which were immersed in amniotic fluid, steaming as if boiling water were rising. His consciousness rapidly expanded the scanning range, and he soon discovered that the raiders had crashed through the high wall, and the muzzle of the plasma cannon was continuously spewing black smoke. Your shield is overloaded. Archon Land's voice echoed through the mind space. After Cavalieri arrived at Maxima's forging city defenses, Titan's military communications system was connected to the mind space network. He turned his arm, aiming the molten cannon at the Marauder-class Titan, and spoke. I know. Do you have any ideas on how to change the current situation? He was at Primarch. Robert Gilliman played a decisive role in the arduous battle of the Prisley Binary. After the war, he earned the title of Lord of the Storms, but at a great cost. Cavalieri was forced to return to Mars with the severely damaged Divine Machine, handing over most of it to his Lieutenant Maximus Calania. Therefore, his legion was no match for Legio Mortis, especially with the presence of the Emperor-class Titan. My suggestion is to evacuate Mars and preserve our strength for future battles. I will never leave my foundry, Maxima said. Archon sensed Maxima's stubbornness and recalled the Oracle of Omniscia. Yawu, Matthias Kefra. 12 sages have decided to head to Space Zero. Maxima's memory buffer, filled with data, repeatedly emptied of lower-level data, yielded no results. Spear Zero. Spear Zero is a dying red star recorded in ancient star charts, Great Crusade. In the 60th year since its inception, it was rediscovered by the 28th Expeditionary Fleet's subsidiary fleet. Cavalieri's consciousness flickered before Archon's. The fleet's exploration of Sage has revealed that the planet has a vast amount of resources, enough to meet the material needs of 100 forge worlds. Quote, the planet itself is also composed of a scarlet, homochromatic crystalline substance. The 28th Expeditionary Fleet, Fulgrim conquered it. Maxima asked. No, actually we conquered that planet, Cavalieri said proudly. Spear Zero is not only occupied by alien electric monsters, but it is also close to the orbit of a dead star. Even the Astartes cannot fight there due to the scorching surface. I volunteered to Fulgrim, and he blessed us, but did not send a warrior with us. The storm machines landed on the other side of the Death Star. We avoided the most intense radiation areas, but 47 warhounds were still boiled by the high temperature. Cavalieri's consciousness was filled with sorrow. He was silent for a moment, then his consciousness shone brightly again. The warriors and raiders fought for thousands of kilometers and finally wiped out the electric monster. So, Spire Zero is ours. Maxima pressed. Although the Emperor's children did not participate in the war, they shared in the glory. After we acquired the mining rights, the 52 Forge worlds used their resources to improve infrastructure and produce warships and titans. After receiving the message from Cavalieri, Maxima understood what Archon meant. Archon, you want me to join them and go to Spire Zero to establish my new foundry? That's right. Archon's consciousness floated up again. This is a wise choice, Cavalieri thought to himself. Even if no world can compare to the sacred Mars, Spire Zero is enough for you and the other sages to rebuild your assets. The Stormfront will block the traitorous divine machine, buying you time to evacuate. No. Archon rejected Cavalieri's decision to fight to the death. You must leave too. I am the captain of the Titan, and I will not leave my battlefield. Cavalieri's consciousness burned fiercely. You must leave. Archon recalled the Black Emperor's instructions and knew how to persuade the Lord of Storms. To die in battle is an irresponsible and cowardly decision. What about the other Protoss units in Tempest Legion? Are you going to abandon them? Maximus will lead them to continue the fight, Cavalieri said dismissively. He has already betrayed us and sided with Warmaster. No, Cavalieri roared in fury. He was my adjutant, I know him, and I appointed him as head of state. Oh, Archon said sarcastically. How long has it been since he last contacted you? Do you know anything about their situation? They are fighting on the front lines of the Great Crusade, Cavalieri explained. Think about it, what if Maximus, like Legio Mortis Camulos, betrayed us and joined the Warmasters? Archon said. Do you know that they are stationed at Tower 3, where all the monks believe that the Emperor and Omniscia are not one, and that they have been plotting to overthrow the Empire's rule? Besides you, Lord of the Storms, who else can persuade the other Titans not to follow Maximus in his rebellion? Cavalieri thought that Maximus had over 100 divine machines, which, if they defected to Warmaster's side, would become terrifying weapons of traitors. Compared to destroying a few traitorous divine machines and dying gloriously, bringing the lost divine machines back to the Eye of the Storm as much as possible is a more valuable and important mission. I see. Cavalieri had just made his decision when alarm runes surged through his mind like waves. The death shadow of the destruction skull rune on the Aquila Ignis engulfed a storm machine. 989 The darkness created by Archon could actually shield Titan's Oracle or A. The Imperial-class Titan Aquila Ignis, Legio Mortis, moved forward with slow and heavy steps. In addition to the traditional black, red, and silver paint, the steel armor is also branded with the mark of the Eye of Horus. The communication channel was filled with terrifying scrap code, and the machine spirit roared, eager to unleash its murderous intent. Bang! The giant steel foot stepped on the refinery's fuel pipeline, and amidst the deafening roar of the explosion, flames shot out, and billowing black smoke carved streaks in the air. 2. Tempest Titan Legion, Warhounds unleashed deadly streams of energy from their molten cannons toward the Legion's auxilia. Turbo lasers shot out like arrows, striking auxilia's steel chariots. The scorching molten liquid sliced through the chariots, incinerating the soldiers into gas. Amidst the screeching sound of scrapcode, the robotic arm eagerly rose. Although Legio Mortis and the Storm Titan Legion fought side by side for over 1,000 years, advancing together into the corrupt plains inhabited by the tech barbarians to incinerate all tech predators and old night ghosts, their territories and allies bordered each other in countless regions. For territory and power, and the right to use the priceless ancient technology discovered in the rusty dunes, they have clashed countless times in bloody conflict, and their hatred for each other is deeply ingrained in the machine spirit of every Titan. The Emperor-class Titan raised its massive annihilation cannon, locking onto the warhounds of the Tempest Titan Legion. Titan unleashed a devastating beam of light, knocking down the warhounds of its nemesis. A mushroom cloud suddenly rose up and continued to expand. Destroying two storm machines could not satisfy the swirling scrapcode's bloodlust, nor could it vent the resentment it had accumulated. Carlomus quickly issued the order. Helmsman, pursue the enemy. Surveyor, observe the missile. Observer, lock onto the next enemy. The observer quickly replied, Your Highness, Defense 052, 490 meters. The scrapcode flew by, and the information updates spread rapidly among the crew members, turning their eyes bloodshot. With the situational awareness updated, Camuros locked onto the prey that had entered his field of vision. Gunner, transmit weapon firing command, missiles fire in 3 bursts, 2 seconds apart. Camulos felt the movement of the heavy cannon, as if it were part of his body. 3 missiles whistled up from the shoulder armor, and the dazzling void shield collapsed amidst the explosive flames. The raider staggered, one of its arms blasted to pieces, flames erupting from it. The Tower of Hails has been hit. The icy voice made his amniotic fluid churn, and scenes from the Great Crusade flashed through the mind of Indian's Cavalieri, the Lord of Storms. Spire Zero embarks on a long hunt for the alien electric monster on the scorching surface of the Earth. Follow Gilliman's Ultramar expedition, especially in the arduous battles of the Prisley Binary. Cavalieri knew he could not turn back to rescue Suzak, the leader of the raiders. He had to leave Mars alive to confirm Maximus Carania's loyalty. Observer, I need images, Cavalieri commanded. The image acquisition array is damaged, and I am unable to capture a complete image. Do your best, Cavalieri said. A rustling sound arose, and the snowflake-like image shook incessantly. The Tower of Hales, like a wounded lone wolf, retreated, zigzagging along. Its weapons roared and howled, and its limited energy made its remaining shields even more vulnerable. A missile struck the machine gun mercilessly, causing the engine to lurch precariously. The machine spirit of the storm god roared and howled, its giant mechanical feet suddenly stopping. You know we can't go back, Cavalieri said painfully. His body, enveloped in amniotic fluid, seemed to wither and age instantly. Lord of the Storms, I will buy you time. Arkan Land's consciousness suddenly reached his mind. Order them to fix their evacuation direction. From now on, you will be unable to communicate or rely on any auger arrays. Arkan, that's an Emperor level 1, Cavalieri asked, puzzled. He heard that Arkan had recently killed a sister from Sidonia. But Titan is the engine of war, while Assassin is a killer from a different dimension. There's no time to explain. If you want to save Storm Machine, do as I say right now. Cavalieri didn't use the war engine for analysis, he immediately issued the order. Messenger, order all divine machines to lock onto the direction of the Legion fortress on Mount Escarils. All servants prepare to receive all divine machines and evacuate to the storm. Cavalieri turned his attention to the images with anticipation. A blazing beam of light struck the right arm of the Tower Hal's Towertus. The fragments rained down, and Titan the Raider nearly fell to the ground. Cavalieri's vision suddenly blurred. He was about to ask the observer if the signal could be strengthened when he found that all the images had become hazy. Even the storm god's main view quickly lost its clarity, turning into a deep, dark abyss in an instant. What happened? He projected his consciousness. Storm. Magnetic. Interference. The once smooth communication link seemed to have been blocked. Open black lens bracket Arkan's darkness, which can actually block Titan's bird array, close black lens bracket. Cavalieri wondered. The Warmaster class Titan is equipped with a bird-based array that includes radar scanners, echolocation devices, spectral sensors, and electromagnetic detectors, enabling it to create precise images of the surrounding terrain and enemy positions. The multi-bird array can capture multiple layers of signals, including thermal signals, ground activity, motor noise, and even the sound of bricks and stones being knocked down by enemies trying to escape the wrath of the divine machine. However, now he can neither see nor hear, as if he has been stripped away from the noisy battlefield and thrown alone into the wilderness of darkness. Cavalieri had just found the perfect adjective to describe the current situation when he was suddenly overjoyed. Open black lens bracket alone, the wilderness, close black lens bracket. This means that even the mighty Emperor-class Titan might not be able to lock onto the enemy, and the Stormcraft could escape according to the previously set defenses. He immediately understood Arkan's earlier request. Arkan did not undergo any divine transformation, yet his flesh and blood body could unleash such peculiar abilities. Is it truly omniscience blessing? Cavalieri slowly turned his body toward the messenger outside the amniotic fluid track. You immediately coordinate the various systems of the divine machine along the internal pipelines. Bang, bang. The storm god's stride was reduced by half, and it practiced clumsily, like the Warhound's crew that was suddenly promoted to Warmaster class. He groped his way forward through the darkness, heading towards Mount Escarils. His right foot crossed the forged temple without him noticing. Arkan stood on the temple's main door, watching the shadows sweep across his head. In the heart of the entire forged city, only, astronomer, could see the twin stars shining in the sky and how they swallowed the light. With his spirituality, he sketched above the forged city the astronomical phenomenon he observed in the Serpent's Cradle galaxy as an astrumor, following Omniscience command, where the line connecting Alpha and Tower formed a 3.3-degree angle. The essence of this phenomenon is a spiritually constructed binary star system, where the scattered light interferes with each other, engulfing all light and creating electromagnetic interference at the mechanical level. Astronomer's eyes lit up with a pure mechanical gold, and the starlight slowly rotated. He gazed into the sky, and illusory images appeared as his consciousness unfolded. The Aquila Ignis resembled a blind bear, stumbling and blindly crashing into a fully powered reactor. Rumble. In the silence and endless darkness, a devastating explosion rips a Legio Mortis Warhounds to shreds. The Emperor-class Titan's massive mechanical left foot sprang up, causing it to stumble and fall more than 10 steps, almost overturning. 990 The death tomb of an Emperor-level Titan. Magma City. Archmagos stands atop the forged temple, gazing northward at the swirling darkness. Sage Apprentice Counterpoke walked up behind her. Mentor, I'm allocating power to the augur array. The sages did their best to observe, but no matter what methods they used, they couldn't detect what was happening in the foundry city of Ipluvian Maxima. I obtained all of his communication records with Archon and Cavallari in the mind space. Coral is a senior archmagos in the Mechanicus's new mental space, from which she can extract all traces of information. Her sage apprentice is spread throughout the Empire, including the mind space established in Anderman, the southern center of the distant Ultramar, whose master, Sage Urkar Hurst, was dispatched by her. Archon created darkness, giving Ipluvian and the Stormbringer an opportunity to evacuate. This is the first time I've seen darkness in the never-ending furnace. Archon Archmagos, the power he unleashed was incredible. Porker recalled the terrifying scene of facing the mechanical assassin not long ago. I think if it had been a nanosecond later, my core engine would have been destroyed by her. I have been transformed into a mindless servitor to continue serving you. Amazing, Corey repeated. The fear of a life or death crisis robbed you of your rational thinking. Don't forget the core ideas I taught you. There is no omniscia, and there is no omniscia, Poke said slowly. Any mystery can be explained and understood. Mentor, if that's the case, why don't we accept Archon's suggestion and meet Lord Nimrod? You can personally uncover all the mysteries. This means giving up Magma City, Corey said. I have devoted countless hours and resources to building this city. Now, it's just one step away from final completion. That's why you should seek Lord Nimrod's help to improve the Akashic Reader. The Akashic Reader's knowledge source is warp. To unravel the mysteries of warp, one must rely on Psyker. Lord Nimrod is Astarte's advocates and leaders of the Librarian Project. If we stay in Magma City, we will only perish with it. With Lord Nimrod's help, we can build the perfect city in your mind. Corey remained silent for 10 seconds before speaking. You're right. The knowledge that Lord Nimrod bestowed upon Archon, and the improvement of the Akashic records, are more important and more valuable than Magma City. Transmit my order. Evacuate all important assets, take all research data and 3 generals' cannons with you. She gazed at the gradually dissipating darkness, her consciousness focused on her thought space. Archon. After 5 failed attempts, this time she successfully reached Archon's consciousness. Your methods of creating darkness and interfering with augurs and communications were taught to you by Lord Nimrod. That's right, the sleeve is Omniscia, who gave me the ability to create astronomical phenomena, Archon replied. An astronomical phenomenon, Corey repeated. Whatever it is, I will be able to decipher it. Yes, you've convinced me. I've decided to leave with you. But I want the enemy to learn a lesson from death. Magma City will be the burial ground for the invaders. Boom. The Imperial-class Titan Aquila Ignis, formerly known as Legio Mortis, stumbled out of darkness. Camulos leaned forward, then gradually leaned back on the throne. Confirm our location. My lord, we have left the central area of the Maxima Foundry and are now on the main road leading to Mount Arcia. Magnus City, Camulos pondered for a few seconds, is not our primary objective. Locate the Storm Legion fortress on Mount Escroll, I will destroy it myself. While the crew carried out orders, Camulos reviewed the maintenance report for the supercomputer. Open black lens bracket void shield suffered partial damage, right leg 41.96%, left leg 38.07%, close black lens bracket. Damn Maxima, what a despicable trick. As he raged, a string of 72-bit scrap code came rolling in. Camulos, I demand that you report to me immediately. Don't test my patience any further. 97. Camulos immediately sent a string of scrap codes. Fabricator General, my communications were interrupted and have just been restored. What? Kelber Hal's scrap code was filled with surprise. Has the cause been identified? Not yet, Camulos replied. I think we need to return to the hangar for a full inspection. This must be related to Zeth. Kelber Hal thought of the Warmaster's request that Regulus had relayed to him. Akashic Reader. Could it be that Zeth really obtained some kind of supernatural power similar to that of the vaults of Moravitz from there? Kelber Hal also recalled that his trusted follower and personal ambassador, Melgator, died in Magma City. You must immediately proceed to Magma City, kill Zess, and seize all her assets. Fabricator General, I have defeated Storm Titan, they should be wiped out immediately, Camulos said unwillingly. He wanted to take revenge on his nemesis immediately, rather than return to Zess's darkness prison. This is a joint decision between Warmaster and me, and we will implement it immediately. Open black lens bracket warrior. Close black lens bracket. Camulos knew he had no more excuses. Follow your and Warmaster's commands. After disconnecting the scrapcode connection, Camulos issued a command. We've redefined our direction, with Magma City as our next target. Send a summons. All divine machines who hear this order, proceed to Magma City. 25 hours later, the giant foot of the Emperor-class Titan stepped onto the fortress attached to Magma City. Rumble. The steel fortress collapsed, and hundreds of Skitarii were trampled into mincemeat. Kamulos stared ahead as 19 raiders unleashed a deluge of firepower upon the city walls. 36 warhounds sped along at breakneck speed, already reaching the foot of the city wall. Boom! The giant foot of the Aquila Ignis trod across Aganipu Avenue, advancing irresistibly toward Magma City. The annihilation cannons roared and opened fire, detonating a series of chemical silos in the destructive beams. Endless toxic smoke billowed into the sky, and fire raged across the outskirts of Magma City. Scan at maximum power. Kamulos gave the order, then pointed his arm at the city wall. Boom boom boom. The numerous turrets of the auxiliary fortress unleashed a torrent of fire upon the Emperor-class Titan, while the endless energy supplied by the Arsia volcano continuously replenished the plasma spheres and energy beams. The Titans of the Dead Skull unleashed their destructive fury in all directions. The annihilation cannon's destructive beam suddenly surged, piercing through the entire city like a flying arrow. In just 56 seconds, the Emperor-class Titan's attack melted Magma City's void shield. The Aquila Ignis charged into the city, Warhound's Titan raced and tore apart foundries one after another. Inside the Forge Temple, Archmagos Coral Zess overlooks her foundry city. Countless industrial workshops, spiderweb-like manufacturing plants, and towering furnaces were leveled in the violent explosion. Cybernetic automata was blasted into the sky by a whistling missile and reduced to ashes. The destructive beam swept across Skitarii, instantly vaporizing flesh and blood. The servitor was crushed and flattened by the giant foot, sparks of electricity erupting from it. Every algorithm and predictive calculation executed by Coral's strategic thinker yielded the same result. She saw no prospect of victory. She closed her eyes slightly, and when she opened them again, she coldly issued the order. Initiate self-destruct program. Coral turned to Arkan. I need your help to create darkness, so that the traitorous Arcane will not be aware of the impending destruction. Arkan nodded and stepped out of the temple. Self-destruct procedure has been initiated, Sage Counterpoke reported. She followed her mentor, watching Arkan's every move. As Arkan emerged from the Forge Temple, the astronomer spread throughout his spirituality, and two bright stars shone in his eyes. The stars flew through the sky, forming a 3.3-degree angle between the lines connecting them. The burning sky rapidly became hazy, and in the blur, the entire forged city quickly descended into darkness. The massive mechanical structure of the Etna Dam, the core link of the Magma City magma network, trembled violently. The massive gate door, which maintains the perfect energy flow of magma, is fully open for the first time. The warning device operates silently. The temperature of the dam rose rapidly, causing internal circuits to melt and heat exchange columns to rupture. In silence and without light, the Etna Dam evaporated. The sluice gates, control valves, and emergency turbulence devices throughout the lava city had already been opened on Corel's orders, silently destroying the shield launchers that prevented the lava from burning. The lava flowed unimpeded through the city's thermal aqueducts, rushing toward the lava diversion network that channeled the lava from the interior of the active volcano to the surface. The metal bent and melted under the sudden high temperature, and magma was ejected. The foundation dissolved silently, and waves of magma submerged the concrete, flooding the banks of the city's thermal canals and aqueducts. Lava waterfalls swept through the streets, igniting fuel depots and ammunition storage facilities. The captains of the 41 remaining Legio Mortis aircraft simultaneously felt excruciating mental anguish from the melting of their metal bodies. They were in the darkness, unaware of what had happened. Lava seeped into the feet of the bewildered warhounds, who had stopped their wild march. The ground in the entire area collapsed, and they fell rapidly into the lava and abyss. The earth was shattered, and the lower limbs of the raiders melted and broke off one after another. The reactor shut down due to the ever-increasing temperature overload and was immediately engulfed by magma. The Aquila Ignis suffered a broken ankle joint actuator, causing massive, spiderweb-like cracks to appear in its upper body due to mass imbalance. The shattered upper body fell like a collapsing statue, crashing into the boiling lava. Camulos saw a fiery red hue, which was then swallowed up by darkness. Greater than 991 Dorne, sons of Horus, I'm awesome for you. In the fourth dimension of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod sits atop his throne. Open black lens bracket at this point. I hope readers will remember our domain name, Taiwan Novel Network, for entertainment, and read it anytime. Close black lens bracket. Lucius knelt on one knee and began to report. We found 3,619 sets of new power armor that have been fully tested and adjusted in Mondo's Gamma. Nimrod knew that although Mundus Gamma was similar in size to Mundus Oculum, Lucas Crumb's foundry had a lower capacity than Zagreus Cain's. These assets, which originally did not fall into the hands of Campa Diaz, all became equipment for the rebels. He remembered Diaz's complete defeat after encountering the Caban robots. Two companies of Imperial Fists, supported by Jovian Grenadier, were not completely wiped out. 50 Imperial Fists survived. Diaz failed to complete Dorn's mission and only took a small amount of spoils from East Borough. Most of Mundus Gamma's equipment was sent to various rebel legions, and the Forge continued to produce weapons for the rebels. Sigismund did not achieve all his goals. Although he took all the assets, Mundus Oculum was occupied, and the almost intact facilities continued to provide the rebels with military equipment. The Legion suffered 4,720 casualties, and the Twilight Raiders suffered 1,830. After listening to Lucius's report, Nimrod realized that the reason Nimrod could achieve even greater victories than the Imperial Fists was the difference in troop strength. No matter what strategy they employ, the four companies of Imperial Fists cannot withstand the attack of the partially dead Titans of Mundus Gamma, nor can they defeat the Caban robots under Lucas Crumwar. He dispatched more than 31,000 troops to participate in the battle, which was more than 15 times the strength of the Imperial Fists, so he was able to achieve great results. Lucius, Vespasian, and Nathaniel Garo not only seized the prototype and STC of the Eagle Power Armor, the STC of the Raven Power Armor, and 7,500 finished sets, but also destroyed Mars' two largest foundries, weakening the rebels' production capacity. The death of Archmagos Lucas Crumb, who was not killed in action, not only deprived Kelber Hal of a trusted confidant but also brought an end to the robots of Caban. While Nimrod was pondering, Archon Lance spoke up to report. Corey Zess abandoned Magma City. We activated the Magma self-destruct system, burying the traitorous machine that killed Legio Mortis. Nimrod nodded slightly. Just as he remembered, the destroyed Magma City buried the Emperor-class Titan. Archon skillfully used his unique astronomical mystical powers to preserve the three general cannons, and the Tower Lannis Knights did not lose most of their strength. More importantly, Corey Zess and her sage the apprentices all survived. While Lucius's main task was to seize assets, Archon used his Archmagos identity and reputation to persuade more talented people not to stay and fight to the death on Mars. Nimrod, leaning on his throne and drawing on his goals and plans from the great birthday celebration, devised an arrangement. Maximus Kalania will lead the main force of the Taiwan Legion, Storm, accompanying Horus to the Colonnade New District. Archon, tell the Lord of Storms to go to Alicia via teleportation. The door leads to Colonnade New District. After he addresses the legions, I believe some Titans will follow him. His arrangement will not only weaken the enemy forces attacking Colonnade New District, but Flamini will also gain enhanced defensive capabilities. The Tower Lannis family escorted 13 sages, including Ipluvine Maxima, Ya, Matthias Kevlar, and others, to Spire Zero to rebuild their foundry. The rest of you, immediately proceed to the traitor's home world, Chthonia, the realm of Horus. Nimrod recalls that there were 3 sieges of Chthonia during the great birthday celebration. Dorne will send his least favorite commander, Lord Evand Garius, with the 9th and 14th battalions, part of the 13th Company of the Space Wolves, not lost in Webway, 3 companies of the Imperial Guard, and the Machine God Praetorian Guard to capture Chthonia. After years of development, Chthonia is not only a developed industrial world, but its local people are also an excellent source of soldiers. Chthonia was one of the main sources of manpower during the later stages of the Imperial Fists' great birthday celebration. Horus, on the other hand, focused on implementing its own strategy and did not expend a large amount of military force to reclaim the homeworld of the Sons of Horus. After conquering Chthonia, Lucius, you shall immediately recruit soldiers in Chthonia and establish the Flawless Blade. Chapter. Archon, you lead the Great Branch Legion to assist in establishing defenses at Exum. Nimrod will not immediately allow the Squat Alliance to take Chthonia away. He knew that Chthonia would become a gathering place for survivors of the broken legions and loyalists of the rebel legions. For the sake of the genius, Nimrod will not take Horus's Chthonia away for the time being. Then, Vespasian and Nathaniel came to see me at the eastern edge of the galaxy with Coral Archmagos. Nimrod recalls that the rebels did not send troops to Chthonia before they gained an overwhelming advantage during the Terrace siege. Horus only allowed the Chthonia descendants of the Sons of Horus to reclaim their home planet once the rebels' victory was assured. For several years thereafter, Chthonia did not require heavy defense, so the Vespasians and Nathaniel did not need to garrison Chthonia. The arrival of Vespasian, Nathaniel, and Corid would not only strengthen the military, but Nimrod could also, corrosion, them, solidifying his power base. Lucius and Archon said in unison, "Follow your will." With a thought, Nimrod caused the black mist to surge, sending Lucius and Archon back to the real world. "Horus, the output of your Chthoniya will provide me with resources. Your son of Chthoniya will become the flawless blade and order shadow, and the new, Luna wolves, of the future. Dorn, sons of Horus, I'm proud of you," Nimrod said with a smile. He gathered his thoughts, and then, with a thought, returned to the real world. Nimrod strode into Primarch's office, and as soon as he sat down on the throne, the communication bead in his right ear began to buzz. He raised his hand and pressed the communication bead, and Primarch's attendant's voice rang out. "My lord, we have arrived in the Tower Nagris system." The Augur array performed a full-scale scan of the galaxy, and the results showed that Forge World 30 void ships are anchored in the orbit of Diamond Star. By identifying the thermal reactions of the reactor and sensors, it was determined that capital ships and heavy transport ships were mixed together. Nimrod leaned back on the throne and said with a smile, "Horus believes that I am also embroiled in a long war with the Gordian League. He didn't expect me to arrive at Diamond Star so quickly. As you foresaw," Arsenadun said. "The reactor signals of the two larger void ships that have been identified match those of the large cruisers USS Leo and USS Furnace. Hunt down Horus's fleet," Nimrod ordered. 992 That wasn't Lance, but on the bridge of the Shadow of Sovereignty, Captain Diana Pauline's communication headset rang. Primarch's attendant's voice came through, "Captain, Lord Nimrod has authorized an attack on the rebel warships in orbit." "Yes, sir," Diana replied, opening the fleet's command channel. "Order Shadows, officers. A vast collection of Taiwanese novels available for easy reading. The Warmasters have betrayed the Empire, and we will have the honor of administering their first punishment, making them pay the price for their betrayal." Diana retrieved the scan results on the control panel, and the scan images of the Augur array were updated to the most recent scan results. The Order Shadow fleet deployed in a crescent formation, centered around two Gloriana-class battleships, Shadow of Sovereignty and the 4th chapter flagship Deathwither. She stared at the glowing red data runes as 15 enemy destroyer ships, forming a standard crescent-shaped formation, sped toward her. "Their destroyer wants to delay us and buy time for the heavy transport ship. The Relic-class battleship of Chapter 7, take them down." "Reaper, begin operations, Captain Diana," replied Sanchez, the Lord of Chapter 7. The 4 warships accelerated and shot out like arrows. Lance shot out from the ancient Relic-class battleship, streaking across the void in a burning arc. Deadly crossfire struck the 2 destroyer ships. The vaporized metal emitted a blinding light, and together they ignited into a massive fireball. A torpedo hastily passed through the 2 vortexes and sped toward the Black Fleet. The explosion flickered in the darkness void, and the plasma bursts bloomed like fireworks, but it did not touch any ships. The remaining destroyer engines burned fiercely, traversing the expanding cloud of gas as they attacked the Black warship. Burning destroyer fragments, entangled in their void shields, interfered with their bird-like scanning. Surveyors searched for any trace of the Order Shadow engine amidst the storm. Within the radioactive fumes, hot spots suddenly appeared, then expanded like stars. The surveyors on the Tottenham excitedly calculated the range and vector, and teleported the data to the torpedo. The void ship's torpedoes have a maximum range exceeding that of the Lance and the macro gun array, making them the most likely attack method to hit the enemy. Sons of Horus, standing on the bridge, coldly issued the order. "Attack." "Sir, that's not an enemy ship, it's a Lance." "Impossible." Sons of Horus shouted. They bravely traversed the wreckage of the explosion in order to disrupt enemy fire. "My lord, that's not Lance. Its physical form is a beam of light, but not simply a beam of energy, it's etheric reading." The sound abruptly stopped, and a dazzling array of colorful light entered Sons of Horus's field of vision. He squinted slightly, and at the same time, his retinal photosensitive system automatically adjusted to a lower level. However, the supernatural light did not dim in the slightest. He flew past the Thinker array, the light passing through the machines without bending or twisting in the slightest, and without any obstruction. The light rapidly magnified in Sons of Horus's eyes, then engulfed him. His body and soul were torn apart together. The ether cannon mounted on the lower bow of the Relic-class battleship emitted beams of brilliant light, tearing through the energy field. The dazzling beam sliced through the void shield and penetrated the dagger's hull, detonating the entire warship almost instantly. One warship after another exploded, the explosive etheric energy mingling with the fireworks, and a sun rose in the Tower Nagris system. The main reactor of the Brave was burning fiercely, flames wrapped around the void shield, and were blasted out from the storm. It roared and unleashed a deadly torpedo, slamming into the Void Hunter's void shield. 4 beams simultaneously struck the destroyer's hull, converging in the Brave's plasma chamber. Countless rays of color shot out from the ship's hull, tearing it into tens of thousands of pieces. Sanchez, wearing a Lehman Russ wolf helmet, a death wolf fur cloak, and a sword of kraken belt, spoke into the communication channel. "Diana, the road to Diamond Star has been opened." "A swift hunt," Diana exclaimed, glancing at the video screen. The fleet line was now less than 380,000 kilometers from Diamond Star. "Everyone accelerate." As Shadow of Sovereign accelerated to its maximum speed, Diana felt the roar of the thrusters echoing across the deck. The female captain stared at the enemy ships, whose main force consisted of 4 large cruisers. The updated scanning array of the Navigator had identified them as the Avenger-class large cruisers USS Leo and USS Forgestar, as well as the Avenger-class large cruisers USS Punisher and USS Avenger. There were squadrons of 4 cruisers on each side. Their weapon array consisted of laser cannons and lances, none of them were capable of launching torpedoes. The cruisers are intercepting us, but their goal isn't combat, they're buying time for the transport ships to get off track. The Astartes ships are designed to force their way through enemy planetary air defense networks to deploy landing forces, and have thicker armor than typical ships of the same class. Wedge formation, making full use of our numerical and firepower advantages. Diana switched the Shadow of Sovereignty fleet channel, turned to new course 529, lock onto target Leo, and launch a torpedo attack. The crescent front rapidly disintegrated, each forming 4 separate battle groups. The wedge tip is the Shadow of Sovereignty, which slowly turns to the left. The massive Gloriana-class battleships were able to launch more agile torpedo attacks than smaller cruisers. The schools of fish sprayed from the tubes rained down on the Leo. Multiple hits. Enemy ship identified, deck markings hit, 13, 14, 17. Lion is listing 5.8 degrees to starboard, attack 65.2%, prepare for impact. From the bow of the Leo, a scorching beam of light swept across space, striking the shield of Shadow of Sovereignty. Diana stared at the scrolling runes and reports. Open black lens bracket starboard void shield dropped to 96.47%, close black lens bracket. Automatic charging increased to 97.18%, close black lens bracket. Amidst the tug of war between rising and falling numbers, torpedoes rained down relentlessly on the Leo. After calibration, the starboard macro gun was added to the attack array. The enemy ships were bombarded by a barrage of cannon fire, and huge explosions echoed across the deck of the Leo. A swarm of fish burrowed into the cracked deck and ignited the plasma chamber. Flames from the plasma spread across the entire Avenger-class cruiser like firecrackers being lit. Diana shifted her gaze, taking in the entire battlefield. The Death Wither's ship shot out 2 bright beams of light. A bright beam of light pierced the flame-scorched, staggering starship, Furnace. Lance followed closely, crashing into the ruptured hull and piercing through the entire Avenger-class large cruiser. She watched the bursts of light, opened the communication channel, and reported to the Primarch's attendant. "Arsena, the outcome of the Void battle is decided. Greater than 993 Ryan, I'll be the first to be awesome for the Grand General cannon you gave to Perturabo." In the Primarch office, in the Shadow of Sovereignty, Primarch's attendant reports to the Black Emperor with a furrowed brow. "My lord, the orbital strike launched by Horus's fleet has caused severe ionization in the atmosphere, and we have lost contact with the surface." As Arsena Dunn spoke, she raised her control staff and projected a holographic image of the planet. Looking out over Nimrod, Diamond Star is covered in mottled rust, ochre, and charred iron. The flame runes kept jumping and updating, and gray runes were densely distributed all around. The report submitted by Roche Matrix has identified 38 battlefields of varying sizes where fierce fighting is taking place. Because we were unable to make contact, we were unable to distinguish between the rebels and the loyalists. Nimrod nodded, his self-light sweeping across the holographic image, all the relevant memories of Diamond Star flashing through his mind, before he spoke and gave the order. The 4th and 7th chapters landed at the governor's mansion to assess the situation of the rebels and carry out a comprehensive cleanup. Unlike most Forge worlds, after Horus submitted to Diamond Star, the Empire appointed a planetary governor to manage everything except the Foundry. The 11th chapter landed at the main foundry and made contact with the local mechanical order. Don't trust Aljoy Archmagos. He betrayed Fabricator General Wedulus and is secretly siding with Warmaster. Monitor his movements, but do not take action against him for the time being. Wait for the Titan Foundry to fall under our control. It's not the time to reveal Aljoy before acquiring the key assets. The Titan Legion followed the 27th Expeditionary Fleet in combat and was under the command of Horus. Moreover, since Aljoy has not yet been exposed, the Titan Legion dagger is very likely to be deceived by him and become a weapon in his hands. Nimrod's gaze finally settled on the Titan Foundry, which he knew not only manufactured Titans for the Titan Legion, but also built a brand new type of general's cannon. This great cannon was built using technology that had long been forbidden by Mars, and Horus secretly commissioned them to manufacture it. Ryan saw it in a document that Horus sent to the Emperor about 50 years ago when he was researching the history of the Great Crusade. He hastily withdrew from the Gordian League War for this powerful general's cannon. He met Perturabo in the ruins of Diamond Star. Subsequently, in order to gain Perturabo's support in the selection of the new Warmaster and to hope that Perturabo, who was skilled in firepower, could use the general's cannon to strike the rebels in the Terra campaign, he gifted them to Perturabo. Open black lens bracket Ryan, I'm already impressed by the great general cannon you gave to Perturabo, close black lens bracket. This is also good for your reputation, one less foolish decision you made regarding judging people has been made. Nimrod's lips curled into a smirk. Ninth chapter launches a swift and fierce attack on the Titan Foundry. Occupy the foundry and take control of the secret manufacturing of the great general cannon. All warriors participating in the war must be wary of Alpha. Although no ships were found in orbit, the infiltrated Alpha subconscious knew that someone resembling Alpharius was leading a large number of Alphas and had taken root in Diamond Star. This was a situation he had never encountered before, and it was also the greatest enemy he would face. Without the existence of Alpha, the 4 chapters, with a combined force of 59,200 men, more than 60 times that of Ryan, could have ended the war with overwhelming force. Even if he were to reverse penetrate Alpha, he wouldn't know how many Alphas there are, because those Alphas themselves wouldn't know either. Even now, Nimrod cannot be certain whether that Alpharius was actually him. Follow your will. The flagship of the 9th chapter, the Relic-class battleship Wave, sped forward and plunged into the atmosphere of Diamond Star. The heavy door of the airdrop pod was closed and sealed inside the launch tube. With a loud bang, the airdrop pod began to shake violently. A mechanical voice suddenly blared on the command channel, 10 seconds until orbit insertion. 8, 5. The piercing crackling of static electricity made the countdown indistinct. Landing coordinates and tactical data have been successfully loaded into the tactical interface. The Chesney helmet's tactical interface was blurry. After several seconds, a clear image slowly formed. A gray ocean running north to south flows through a desolate plain composed of black rocks and red oxides. A massive, conical slope rises abruptly from the volcano. The red-robed monks drilled holes in the dormant volcano to harness geothermal energy to power the Titan Foundry. Prepare for action. The fleet of 9th chapter scatters airdrop pods like raindrops. The whistling drop pod swept past the fortress-like foundry on the other side, crashing down into the circle at the foot of the dormant volcano. Chesney leapt out of the drop pod and glanced around at the towering chimneys and low cooling towers. On the tactical interface, a striking, huge orange rune leapt up. He turned and looked toward the Titan Foundry, its walls shimmering with crimson, emerald green, and sapphire blue. The information stream on the tactical interface scrolls rapidly. Open black lens bracket. The Titan Foundry covers an area of 5 square kilometers, close black lens bracket. It is completely self-sufficient, with a huge assembly building capable of manufacturing 4 Titans simultaneously. Tech priests supervise the slave laborers, from gathering raw materials to forging the machine body, until the Titan, having completed the ritual, would head towards the Short Sword Titan Legion, fortress 10 kilometers to the north. Open black lens bracket. After reviewing the orbital scan data, Chesney unsurprisingly found that it perfectly matched the data issued by the Black Emperor before the war. He quickly marked the target, the assembly workshop, on the tactical interface, and then opened the command channel. Storm strikes. Landing around, honor guard members with blue wave patterns painted on their right shoulders, wearing the new Mark VI Raptor-type power armor. The Foundry Dex furnace had just produced 103 sets. Chesney learned from reading the tactical materials distributed by the Black Emperor that the design of this new armor was based on the experience of the Emperor's children in the Mars Split War. The Order shadows surged in one direction, like a tide sweeping across a deserted island. With a thought from Chesney, the Lehman Russ frozen armor, custom modified and tailored to his specifications, was activated. The thousands of premium auric alloy metal plates connected to the neurocortex were awakened, and the microfiber-connected hinged frame was activated. A fierce wind swept through the ocean songster, rapidly forming a hurricane around it. He soared into the sky and sped toward the Titan Foundry. A piercing alarm suddenly went off, and mechanical sounds filled the area channel. This land belongs to Adeptus Mechanicus. To set foot here is to invade and will incur the wrath of Omniscia. Stop immediately. Chesney gazed at Skitarii on the city wall, turning the twin laser cannons to face the sky. The heavy logging gun rattled, spraying a dense barrage of bullets that swept across the area. He opened the communication channel and gave the order to honor guard, Rage Mask. 994 The water he created with psionic energy actually possessed the defensive power of a storm shield. The honor guards of 9th chapter Lord Chesney, seasoned, folk of rage, use anger as their weapon, instantly donning the rage status upon themselves. Open black lens bracket. Remember this site's domain name to find the most complete collection of Taiwanese novels. Close black lens bracket. The adrenaline surged through the enraged men, and their bodies seemed to boil with power, enabling them to run, raise their guns, and fire at speeds more than 30 times faster. Firestorm Star's Eacon-type plasma gun fired steady streams of molten liquid, which flew towards the top of the wall. Dense beams of light converged, casting a sunbeam over the towering walls of the Titan foundry. Chesney looked down, and a dazzling light engulfed the barrage of heavy logging guns, turning Skitarii to ashes. The twin laser cannons were ignited by the intense beam of light, and the resulting explosion sent a beam of light shooting into the sky. Ocean Songster suddenly sensed something, his gaze sharpened, piercing through the billowing black smoke, and looked toward the rectangular assembly building. A series of dark green figures rapidly advanced towards the assembly building through the winding pipes. Alpha. With a thought, Chesney activated the wings with thousands of premium auric alloy metal plates. Ocean Songster raised his battle axe, forged from storm adamantite from the broken Thalassa Isles, and a bolt of silver lightning suddenly ripped through the black flames that filled the air, striking an Alpha. Bang! Mark IV power armor was charred black by the attack, and Alpha exploded into countless pieces of corpses crackling with tiny electric snakes, leaping in all directions. Crack! A piece of flesh slammed onto the pipe, leaping and tearing through one pipe after another. Inside the pipes, amidst the piercing alarm, one Skitarii after another was suddenly knocked down, slamming against the metal walls. It wasn't until it hit the insulation layer of the 5th level orbit that the flesh and blood were powerless to fall. Another piece of flesh, crackling with electricity, slammed into Alpha like a heavy hammer, knocking him down. The Alphas looked up at the sky, but the auger array did not detect any enemies in the air. Rumble. There were no thunderclouds, but the sound of thunder suddenly rang out. The Alphas immediately activated the Lemon's Ears filtering function to block out the roaring sound. However, the roar only slowed down slightly, but continued to roar, striking their brains directly. The two Alphas stood frozen in place, repeatedly examining their surroundings. Blood oozed from the breathing grill of an Alpha as his brain exploded amidst a resounding bang. Forward! Archon shouted. Hundreds of Alphas recovered from their shock and rushed towards the assembly workshop. Archon had only taken 3 steps when a swirling gust of wind suddenly appeared out of nowhere on his Pluto-type Terminator armor. The whirlwind spun faster and faster, and the Pluto-type Terminator seemed to be bound by the gale, his speed decreasing. Boom! With a loud bang, the Ocean Songster crashed into the Alpha. He roared and howled, donning a rage mask. The Stormbreaker spun like a windmill, slicing through the Mark IV extreme power armor. Bang bang bang! A series of explosive shells struck the frozen armor that once belonged to Lehman Russ. Fenris's runes shone, and the diamond bullets were instantly covered in frost. Da-da! The bomb slipped and fell without resistance. Bang! With a deafening roar, the Pluto-type Terminator broke free of the wind bindings and charged toward Chesney. Archon pressed the rune, and the power spear glowed blue. He charged at Chesney, his powered spear whistling as it pierced his back. Ocean Songster flicked his wrist over his shoulder and swung it behind him. A blue light suddenly rose up, forming a water curtain that seemed fragile and easily broken. Bang! Amidst a piercing explosion, the powered spear pierced the water curtain. Archon felt his arm sink, and the spear tip moved forward at a slower and slower pace. A thin curtain of water ripples and ripples, stacked together. The ripples looked no different from those in water, but when piled up together, they resembled a storm shield. Open black lens bracket is Order Shadow's psionic shield weird, close black lens bracket. Their singing was also eerie. Completely different from the psychological attacks of Thousand Suns. As Archon pondered, he drew Archiatech pistol from his waist. A blazing beam of light shot out and struck the water curtain. The water curtain shook for a moment, then exploded with a bang. The shockwave, carrying water droplets, slapped against the dark green Pluto-type Terminator armor. Archon glanced at the tactics interface. Open black lens bracket recognized, close black lens bracket. It has a 96.25% similarity to pure water. Threat level, no threat. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. It really is water. Close black lens bracket. The water he created with psionic energy possessed the defensive power of a storm shield. Archon gathered his thoughts, raised his lance, and thrust it at Chesney. Suddenly, the helmet of Ocean Songster was crackling with electricity. Suddenly, the sky above his head darkened, as if dark clouds were gathering, obscuring the light of the lumen lamps and the flames of the furnace. Crack! Silver lightning surged forth, intertwining and coiling around the battle axe. A thick bolt of lightning struck the battle axe. The storm axe instantly turned silver white. Ocean Songster suddenly turned around, with lightning speed. A flash of silver light, and before Archon could even see it clearly, the battle axe had already smashed into the powered spear. Boom! Amidst the deafening explosion, the silvery white light overwhelmed the blue light. The dark green Pluto-type Terminator was charred black from the electric shock, and Archon felt numb all over. Chesney's muscles bulged violently, almost bursting the armor Malevalis had custom forged for him. He swung his arm violently, and the silver battle axe whistled as it cleaved down on Archon. Crack! The electric shock pierced Archon's body, causing him to tremble violently. Bang! The silver ribbon tore through the dark green Pluto-type Terminator, and Archon's charred corpse crashed heavily to the ground. Chesney withdrew his battle axe, beams of light shooting out behind him as the raging warriors caught up with him. He left the remaining Alpha to the honor guard members and headed towards the assembly line. As soon as Chesney entered the assembly workshop, he smelled the distinctive odor of heated metals and petrochemical products. The binary chanting and the roar of the robot were interspersed with some low Gothic sounds. He looked around and saw that the open assembly space was surrounded by 6 huge niches that stretched from the floor to the ceiling. Huge servo arms are mounted on either side of the niche and can move to different heights along the mounting tracks, with the crane suspended above Titan's head. A red light suddenly rose from the assembly floor, stirred by an industrial-grade arc flashlight, and shone down from the top of the workshop. Hundreds of chains hung from the ceiling, clanging and jingling. Each 50-meter-long iron chain has dozens of hooks hanging from it. Each hook held a fresh corpse. Chesney could identify the Tower Negrand Dragoon riddled with bullet holes, the Skitarii torn apart by explosives, the Governor's Guard smashed by mechanical fists, and the Tech Priest cleaved in two by power claws. Blood dripped like threads onto the body of the huge vehicle below. There are a total of 6 vehicles. Their chassis were too wide, so they could only be lined up in a row in the assembly workshop, stretching from one end of the assembly building to the other. Their armored shells are supported by double sets of footboards on both sides of the 2 carriages, and the front of the train is tilted, like a 2-story mountain. The vehicle is protected by void shield covering both sides, as well as quad laser arrays and extra-large explosive arrays. Chesney gazed at the massive cannon on the center line of the vehicle, and the complex series of cranes surrounding the cannon barrel. With a thought, Chesney's body floated up. He flew over the train and immediately discovered that each pair of vehicles was actually a set of bases, like the wheels of a Poisonblade super heavy tank. The cannon was supported by wheels and, due to space constraints in the assembly workshop, could not be rotated to the firing position. Tech priests crawl like ants on war robots, working feverishly amidst a rain of blood, systematically painting one symbol after another with their own blood. One greater than 995 foolish order shadows, today is your death day. At Diamond Star's main foundry, Xanthus, Archmagos Aljoy is dressed in the heavy robes of Fabricator General. The robe was woven with gold and platinum threads, and the pattern was as intricate as an integrated circuit. His sleeves are wide, extending just to the elbows, showcasing the intricate craftsmanship of the Archmagos bionic arm. His upper body muscles housed a pair of mechanical prosthetic eyes that gleamed with a faint blue light as they stared at Pelkashelny, the Lord of the 11th Order Shadow. The Titan Foundry is an important asset of Adeptus Mechanicus. Your attacks will be considered disrespectful to the Omniscia. Cease the attack immediately and return our assets, or I will immediately file a complaint with the Council of Terra. Pel stared at Aljoy. Aljoy, how did Fabricator General Vertullus die? The venerable Archmagos was killed 13.5 hours ago while he was coordinating the security of the foundry, Aljoy said. His plan was rushed. He learned from his former master, Wetullus, that just before the sons of Horus were about to conquer Forge World and take over Diamond Star, the Order Shadow arrived in the planet's orbit. He decided to act immediately, take over Forge World on his own, and then carry out the Warmaster's orders. All of Veturus's servants were killed by Skitarii, who were loyal to him, and it is impossible for anyone to know the truth. Don't think that just because Fabricator General is dead, you can do whatever you want. As a surviving senior member of the Wetullus Council, I am now the acting Fabricator General for Diamond Star. The data cables and coolant pipes on both sides of Aljoy's steel throat vibrated, uttering a binary syllable. As the Skitarii around them raised their arms, Honor Guard pulled the trigger first, and the explosive bomb shattered the Skitari's bionic limbs, spraying out hissing steam. Skitari's multi-barreled machine gun fired, striking the black surface of the Cataphractii Terminator and sending up a series of sharp flashes. Archmagos seized the opportunity to ascend his sage throne, the disc spinning and roaring, widening the gap between himself and Pel. He pointed his scepter at Pel. "Foolish Order Shadow, today is your death day." Amidst a series of roars, one after another, enormous robot beasts charged out. The signal activates the pre-planned combat strategy, injecting deadly combat drugs into the blood of the Skitarii. Their modified bodies contain almost no flesh and blood, making them taller and stronger than ordinary Skitarii, even taller than the bribers, wearing Cataphractii Terminators. The Skitari's bodies instantly stiffen as they transition from one heartbeat to the next. Their ears, noses, and mouths were covered with a dense array of multispectral auger nodes that shimmered with a scarlet glow, locking onto Order Shadow. The bedrock-type bolter roared and thundered, as a dense barrage of bullets rained down on them. The diamond warhead struck the armor, blasting the bionic joints and synthetic muscles into piles of debris. The adrenaline shunts of the giant Skitarii roared to life, and the fiery hammer on their right arm burst forth with a streak of flame as they hurtled toward Order Shadow at an astonishing speed. Aljoy's drug would begin to erode their muscle tissue within 15 minutes, as if it were eating them alive. However, before they died, they were immune to almost all harm. They turned into rampaging killing robots. The helmet displays of the bribers flashed an urgent red, and following the prompting of their spiritual intuition, they raised their arms, infused them with spirituality, and fired the explosives. A barrage of projectiles rained down on Skitari's body. Although the attack caused no actual damage, the figure wielding the flame hammer gradually slowed down, becoming clearly visible to Obsidian's eyes. A Skitarii raised his left arm, his three large, curved fingers plated with diamond, shimmering like a mirror. He swung his claws and slapped at Cataphractii Terminator. Briber raised her arm, her gleaming blade meeting the massive claws. Boom! Amidst the explosion, the weakened Skitarii was blasted back. The briber sword, swirling and cleaving, unleashed a sword strike using the 23rd principle of the Osborne via way, tearing through the sturdy armor and striking Skitari's adrenal shunt. Skitari's steel body trembled violently, and its bionic joints shattered with a deafening roar. Pel crashed into the Skitarii, and the Mentor of Disorder swung his arm, eerily dodging the flame-encased hammer, and grabbed a Skitarii by the throat. His arm lifted the metal beast off the ground, and with a slight squeeze of his fingers, he crushed Skitari's metal spine. Mentor of Disorder stared at Aljoy. "You think your wicked betrayal of Viturus goes unnoticed? You have been secretly colluding with Horus for a long time, and you are going to hand over the general's cannon to him. How could you?" Aljoy suddenly felt the flesh and blood of his body slipping away. Bang! Aljoy's body exploded violently, splattering blood and flesh everywhere. Sparks flashed and crackled from the mechanical parts. After killing Aljoy with the Word of Order, the Mentor of Disorder led the Honor Guard to wipe out Aljoy's modified Skitarii. At the same time, Sanchez, the Lord of the 7th chapter, found Data Kulik, the governor of the Empire in Diamond Star. Generally speaking, the Forge world of the Empire is entirely under the administration of Adeptus Mechanicus. However, Diamond Star is one of the few Forge worlds where the Empire wields considerable power, and it is also the Fabricator General. Kelber Hal's Thorn in its side are also worlds like Incaradian and High Valaria, which are garrisoned in Nimrod, as well as the Romulus-class star fort in Shana orbit. Sanchez's gaze swept over Kulik, who was old and wore battered armor, the same style as the Tower Negrand dragon riders around him, like an ordinary warrior. His left arm was wrapped in a stained bandage, and a surgeon from the governor's house and a medical staff member stood at a cautious safe distance. His light gray eyes shone brightly, concealing pain and fatigue. His shoulders were taut, and an ancient sword hung at his waist. "We are very grateful for your arrival." Kulik looked at the ferocious and terrifying wolf helmet. "The rebels destroyed all the towns from the tracks, and I'm not even sure how many people are still alive. I didn't have time to count all the bodies, let alone bury them. I expect you to join the battle immediately. The Tower Negrand Dragoons are no match for the Sons of Horus's offensive." Sanchez stared at Governor Kulik's stiff face. "Your enemies are not only the Sons of Horus, but also more secretive ones." Alpha. Kulik frowned. "We have not been attacked by any attacks identified as Alpha. They've betrayed us. They've rebelled alongside Warmaster." "That's right," Sanchez said. "I need all the information about Diamond Star, especially the most detailed map. I also need all the reports, both past and future. Kulik nervously shook his injured left arm. Although he didn't have many men left, he knew he had to send someone to organize the data. Defending against the rebel attack led by Sons of Horus was already difficult to sustain, and it was impossible to fight against another legion of Astartes. I will authorize access to the database immediately. Sanchez gestured for Techmarine to come forward. He will copy all the necessary data. The fourth chapter has already engaged in battle, launching an attack on the Sons of Horus. You can rest now, Your Excellency. The adjutant strode over, blood seeping from the tourniquet on his forehead. Our armored regiment's position at C6 was breached by the rebels. What? Kulik took a big step and was about to rush out. The airdrop pod fell from the sky and crashed into the rebel lines. The adjutant noticed Sanchez's terrifying helmet and then looked away. Order Shadow repelled the rebels. Greater than 996 Alfarius, we won many years ago. Father, Aljoy has failed, said Librarian Gukur, chief of Alpha, to Alfarius. Alfarius, draped in a long robe, chuckled softly. We had already won before Nimrod arrived. We began preparations long before this war. We operated in various conflict zones, secretly sowing our seeds and carefully paving the way for our inevitable victory. Please remember Taiwan Novel Network, twcon.com, where you can find the website and read the fastest chapter updates. Nimrod's legions are powerful and full of secrets, and it took us some time to figure out their weaknesses. Alfarius's eyes flashed with a sharp edge. Now, we have taken root in his legion. Their movements are already under control. Nimrod's powerful legions have no secrets. Alfarius recalled Omega's account of his meeting with Nimrod, during which he declined the offer of the position of War Master. Nimrod's ideas were too simplistic, and his sense of responsibility was too heavy. His weakness is that he cannot see the real threat. His methods cannot win this war. His legions will be worn down, weakened, and ultimately destroyed along with him. Alfarius, carrying his spear, strode toward Saronius. Victory is never decided at the start of a war. We won many years ago. The only question is the specific form of victory. I will give him a chance and show him a hopeful future. He had helped Omega and could understand our views on secrets. In that case, how may I serve you? Asked the Master of Pain, Kyle Saronius. You will represent me and command the Battle of Diamond Star. Alfarius walked up to Saronius and stared into his eyes. After growing from a headhunter into a Master of Pain, Saronius, along with First Captain Ingopek and Captain of the Second Company Machias Herzog, became one of his father's favorite commanders. The pale spear's sharp blade sliced off his right little finger and held it out to Saronius. Saronius knelt on one knee, his gaze sweeping over one of the twin rings engraved on it, before sticking out his tongue to lick the scarlet pearl. Gukur's eyes turned completely black, emitting a pale light. 2 bolts of lightning struck Saronius and Alfarius simultaneously, tightly binding their bodies. Alfarius and Saronius's thoughts simultaneously blossomed like flower petals, then merged and intertwined. Countless scenes flashed by, intertwining emotions. Their consciousness was torn to pieces. Alfarius's body shrank, and his robes hung loosely. Saronius's body swelled up, bursting through his robe in an instant. They looked at each other as if staring at their reflections in a mirror. The electric light slowly subsided, and Silonius nodded. Now you are an Omega, and you will be the supreme commander of 20,000 Alphas. As he spoke, he walked toward Saronius's armor. Most people in the Empire, even the Primarch, were unaware of Alfarius's existence. Even though he had met almost all the returning Primarchs while following the Emperor, the one who represented the Alpha identity was the Omega who had been rescued from sloth by Nimrod. Omega donned the Primarch armor and, following his memory, located the Primarch's command channel. Infiltrators, move out. The role of Alpha infiltrators is to create chaos by assassinating key military officers, attacking key locations, and sabotaging key assets. The elite among them are organized into the Headhunters, a killing squad. 5 hours later, 100 Headhunters, clad in full optical camouflage armor, followed Omega into the Croydon Foundry. Omega's eyes darted around as he adapted to his body ever since he drank the blood and gained the memories of Primarch. He felt his strength had increased, his speed had increased, and even his perception abilities, such as his eyesight, had surpassed those of the past. He has also mastered infiltration knowledge and skills that no headhunter could imagine. He can now even infiltrate the palace guarded by the most powerful fortress in the galaxy, just as his father once did. 27 Order Shadows, led by an adjutant. Despite the vast difference between this and their intended goal, Omega decided not to let this unit go. The surrounding wreckage of power armor and the corpses of mortals indicated that they had killed an equal number of sons of Horus and thousands of auxilia, with only 4 Order Shadows killed. There is at least one librarian among them, who is a valuable target. Omega's brain raced, instantly calculating the optimal attack distance. He opened the helmet's built-in communication channel. Most of the Order Shadows librarians are psychic, and our full optical camouflage will fail when we get within 300 meters of them. We launched the attack from a distance of 360 meters. The headhunters silently approached their prey, moving stealthily through the desolate ruins. Omega suddenly stopped walking, and the adjutant looked over. He glanced at the burning furnace for a few seconds before looking away. Omega glanced at the tactics interface. 409 meters. He was just an adjutant, there was no way he could have spotted me from this distance. As Omega pondered, his left combat boot fell to the ground. The adjutant abruptly turned his gaze back, raised his hand, and a rapidly condensing, blazing white spear quickly took shape and shot towards him with a whoosh. Fire type. How could his spiritual perception be so sharp? Omega, he thought, searching through Primarch's memories, puzzled. While he was pondering, he gave the order in advance, attack. The headhunters raised the Calamity Bolter and fired ammunition specially designed by the door to penetrate power armor. Alfarius provided Aljoy with Lehman Russ's Codex Omega combat data, and Archmagos made targeted improvements to his Skitarii to better suit the fight against Order Shadow. He also improved the ammunition, producing 8,900 rounds for the headhunters. Boom! The first explosive round struck precisely into the left shoulder armor of the Mark IV Extreme Power Armor. Order Shadow was jolted by the impact, and his automatic sensing system flashed a series of warning runes. Open black lens bracket. The left scapula is 83.47% damaged, close black lens bracket. He was startled, knowing that the new armor would prevent him from losing his arm. Chapter 7 rarely uses the bulky Mark II, as its armor is insufficient to withstand such powerful bomb attacks. The Mark I's frontal defenses are reinforced, but its vulnerable sides are unlikely to withstand such an attack. While Order Shadow was pondering, he quickly retreated behind the furnace, raised bolter, and launched a counterattack against the exposed, blurry figure. Headhunters' first volley of bullets only took down 2 Order Shadows in the crossfire center. The Order Shadows took cover and launched a counterattack. The ambush quickly escalated into a direct confrontation. 997. Could this be Order Shadow? Librarian's source of power. 100 headhunters raised the Jinx bolter in unison, and a barrage of bullet comments poured out. The Order Shadows navigated through the furnaces under firepower several times greater than their own. 9 Catachan descended. Hunters were the first to retreat into the steel forest north of the foundry. As Hunter ran, his eyes rapidly scanned the surrounding environment, taking in all the factors in his mind. Collapsed buildings, overturned furnaces. They quickly dispersed, dug open the ground with Catachan fangs, and then buried the modified catapult mines they carried with them into the soil. They gently moved aside the gravel and soil to cover the landmines. Immediately, the hunters marked red and green runes in the squad's tactical channel. The 3 provoker captains scanned the runes rising on the tactical interface with their own light, and they quietly issued a retreat order in the team channel, then actively activated the taunt ability. Alpha, you're all overreacting and hesitant. You are not Astartes, nor do you have any honor. You are nothing but gutter rats and snakes in the grass with modified bodies. The headhunters' eyes burned with fury, and the jinxed bolter unanimously aimed their shots at Provoker. Provoker had already retreated into the furnace, and the headhunters followed closely in pursuit. A headhunter's boots touched the ground and immediately sank in, the mud covering the soles. Boom! The ejected mine was triggered, and the exploding fragments shot up, tearing the dark green Mark IV Extreme Power Armor from bottom to top. The shockwave, carrying charred blood and debris, swept across the surrounding area. Boom! The dilapidated furnace was detonated, and burning debris rained down on headhunters. Bang bang bang! With a dull thud, the neat formation was disrupted. 4 warriors charged out first, and Catachan fangs slashed out with a spinning motion, striking the dark green armor. The blade was soaked in an apothecary solution, a highly corrosive solution of gentian violet, which produced a piercing popping sound. A series of bubbles rose from the Mark IV power armor, and cracks appeared on the armor plates. With a cracking sound of shards hitting the ground, the sword tip pierced headhunters' body. Alpha's bodies turned grayish-green, and they trembled as if they had been struck by electric shock. 5 lawyer soldiers suddenly rushed into the chaotic formation, and the Catachan fang was swung out, striking directly at the enemy's gaps. The venom, refined from the barbed thorn bean of Catachan, enters the bloodstream and spreads rapidly with the circulation of blood. Alpha's chest felt numb, like a stiff, necrotic tree. They moved their arms slowly and clumsily, like mummies. The Order shadows dodge and easily avoid the enemy's slow attacks. One rune after another disappeared from the headhunters' tactical interface, and the sorrow and anger of the battle brothers pulled them out of their surging impatience. They stopped and launched an attack on the surrounding Order shadows. Crossfire erupted from the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 12 o'clock positions, simultaneously targeting an Order shadow standing to the right of the furnace. Monster took a step to the left and pulled the trigger before the diamond bullet left the barrel. The bedrock-type bolter roared and struck the right shoulder armor of the Mark 6 power armor at the 2 o'clock position. The joint, which wasn't reinforced like the left shoulder armor, shattered, sending fragments flying and the muzzle of the gun bouncing. The slanted explosive grenade struck another Order shadow in the right thigh. The bomb aimed at Monster at 10 o'clock struck the steel furnace first. The specially made ammunition was inserted into the furnace and detonated with a bang. The shattered fragments bounced up and blocked the flight path of the other two bombs. Following his spiritual intuition, Monster twisted the muzzle of his gun, and the explosive bullet whistled as it slammed into the exposed right shoulder blade. Boom! Headhunter's head exploded, and he crashed to the ground. The three headhunters abandoned Monster and focused their fire on the wounded, slow-moving Order shadow. A salvo struck the black armor, and the specially made ammunition exploded with a bang. Amidst the rising fireworks, the headhunters secured their first kill of the engagement. In an instant, 25 snake head runes disappeared from the Omega tactical interface, while only 4 red runes rose up. After recognizing the battlefield situation reflected by the runes, he was taken aback. Headhunters are the elite of infiltrators, only about 1 in every 100 infiltrators can earn the honor of being a headhunter. They are equipped with the bolter, a scourge of door-killing Astartes, with the goal of eliminating the enemy commander. Even if the surprise attack had failed, they would have had the advantage in a head-on battle. Yet now, despite having an overwhelming firepower advantage, they have suffered a casualty ratio of 6 to 1. Even if the enemy is completely wiped out, it can hardly be called a victory. His father bestowed upon him the blood of Primarch, and he must complete his mission. Omega aimed at Order Shadow, Librarian, and roared as it pulled the trigger repeatedly. 2 fiery serpents shot up around Order Shadows, Librarian, circling the black armor warrior and forming a blazing shield of flames. Specialized ammunition capable of penetrating the Mark II expeditionary power armor head-on, slamming into the flame shield. Bang bang bang, clusters of flames exploded up as Pyromaniac retaliated with his left-hand bedrock-type bolter while repeatedly compressing the flames with his right palm. One fireball after another was compressed by the spirit, forcibly packed together, and merged into a giant fireball. 32 seconds later, his right arm trembled, and the blazing flames almost broke free from the spiritually constructed constraints of Pyromaniac. Pyromaniac suddenly raised his hand, and a huge crimson fireball shot out, smashing into the magnificent armor. Boom boom boom. Omega was forced to retreat repeatedly by the blast, his skin burning hot. Open black lens bracket. My father entrusted the Battle of Diamond Star to me, I will not fail. Close black lens bracket. The unabsorbed blood of Alfarius burned fiercely, and Omega's 2 hearts pounded. Omega's body was ice cold as he coldly raised the Calamity Bolter and fired at a speed far exceeding that of Astartes. Boom! Almost simultaneously, a base number of explosive shells flew from the muzzle, converging into a snake's head filled with venomous fangs. The venomous snake smashed through the wall of flames, leaving streaks in the burning flames as it struck the black armor warrior. Bang! Omega glanced at the powerful opponent, then charged towards Order Shadow. Bolter roared, unleashing a barrage of deadly bullets that claimed the life of an Order Shadow. Boom boom boom. A sea of fire shot into the sky, and the earth shook violently. Omega stopped and silently glanced at the tactics interface. 58 headhunters were killed, but only 9 were captured. Including the powerful fire-type librarian, there are exactly 10 people. Omega frowned as he watched the flames burn fiercely, showing no signs of extinguishing. After a moment's thought, he decided to bypass the obstacle. 1 minute later, Omega, having found nothing, led the team back. He couldn't help but look toward the powerful Librarian's body, and then saw an Order Shadow picking up a crimson object from the corpse. Attack! The headhunters all raised their bolter and fired a volley at Order Shadow. The overwhelming firepower engulfed Order Shadow. Bang! The crimson heart rolled to the ground, slowly expanding and contracting. Omega walked over to the 2 corpses and carefully picked up the crimson heart. He stared at the almost invisible flames emanating from the tiny hole in his heart, slowly turning it to examine it closely. Omega walked to the librarian's body and bent down to examine it. His fatal wounds were a blown-out skull and neck. The chest was ripped open from the inside out, as if the heart had burst out. Omega stood up and glanced at the Order Shadow corpse on the ground again. He risked everything to go back and take the heart. Is there something special about it? Omega, his pupils dilated violently, and a flash of lightning seemed to sweep through his mind. Is this Order Shadow? What is the source of librarians' power? Could it be that Nimrod possesses some secret that makes them so powerful librarians? Strengthening the heart organ to grant Order Shadow power. Omega's heart pounded, he felt he had made a major discovery. He immediately walked to Order Shadow's corpse, drew his combat knife from his waist, and slit open his chest. Omega stares at the normal heart, his brow furrowed. Open black lens bracket. Could I have guessed wrong? Close black lens bracket. Omega spins its ever-expanding and contracting heart. Open black lens bracket. Take it back first. Gukul and the apothecary will surely find the secret within. Close black lens bracket. After Omega led his team away, Captain Provoker came over. He stared at the mangled body of his lieutenant and the Royal Court Knight's body with his chest ripped open, a blazing fire igniting in his eyes. Provoker silently crouched down and picked up the dark red, jelly-like object that had just emerged from the corpse's abdomen. He silently placed the crystallized power bestowed upon him by his father into a crystal box, and used an even-numbered black gold knife to carve a spiritual wall to seal it. I have already informed Lord Thibaut, and he is on his way. We must hold them back before he arrives, and we must not let the relics fall into the hands of a blasphemous Alpha. Another hunter brought the Alpha armor plate to Katachan Wolf's mouth. Katachan Wolf stuck out his tongue and repeatedly swept it across the flesh. Then it opened its blood-red maw and swallowed the flesh and blood in one gulp. It picked up the armor and went forward. 998 I can finally train all of Sequence 5 Beyonders. Omega strode forward, glancing warily around. Over the past 37 minutes, the Order Shadows have launched attack after attack. Even after activating full optical camouflage, they still couldn't shake off Order Shadow. They were like a pack of wolves roaming through a steel jungle, constantly launching attacks from burning furnace wreckage, collapsed ruins, and other places. As Omega pondered, a bullet suddenly flashed past the corner of his eye. Boom! Just as Omega was about to make a move, everything suddenly went black. His chest exploded, and his thoughts slowly sank into darkness. I was wearing my father's armor forged specifically for Primarch. Why did a single bullet break through my defenses? His vision blurred as he scanned the crimson indicator runes flashing on the tactical interface. Open black lens bracket. Breastplate shattered, close black lens bracket. The librarian's attack earlier damaged the breastplate. But there was no damage on the outside. Why? How did he find out? Close black lens bracket. Omega slowly fell to the ground. He saw a black combat boot crash to the ground, and then his consciousness was swallowed by darkness. First Captain of Chapter 7 Thibaut strode over, and Reaper kept pulling the trigger. Deadly bullets struck the weak points in the headhunters' armor with pinpoint accuracy, reaping one enemy after another. Bang bang bang. In the hands of Honor Guard members, a torrent of molten metal engulfed the Mark 6 power armor. After Thibaut picked up the power crystal bestowed by the Black Emperor, he walked to the giant corpse. He recalled the battle he had just fought and the information bestowed upon him by the Black Emperor. Open black lens bracket. Not a real Alpharius or Omega, but an Alpha whose body grew larger after drinking the blood of Primarch. Close black lens bracket. It should be taken back to our Lord. 3 standard hours later, the Primarch office in Shadow of Sovereignty. Nimrod listened to the report while staring at the massive corpse lying on the ground. Primarch's eyes shimmered with light and shadow as he examined the corpse from a supernatural perspective. The Omega's form was gradually peeled away, like a coiled hydra wandering about. A new face came into his view. He is almost identical to his twin Primarch, except that he lacks a bit of the supernatural majesty that Nimrod can perceive. Even among Alpha, which is similar to Primarch, no one is more similar to him. Kyle Saronius. Memories flowed through Nimrod's mind, and he thought to himself. Open black lens bracket. Unexpectedly, Alpharius is still alive, but Saronis has died first. Close black lens bracket. Nimrod recalled that the Alpha Legion infiltrated the Sol system before the other rebel legions. With the help of the Legion librarians, Alpharius and Saronius completed the exchange of their bodies and consciousness. Alpharius infiltrates Terra, awakening the widower Heracro, the son of Hazen Chamber of Commerce, who sent Alpha into Terra to begin a secret operation. Ceronius, disguised as Alpharius, commands the main fleet of over 200 ships aboard the Alpha. When Alpharius was killed by Roger Dornay, Ceronius immediately ordered a retreat, declaring, "We are the Legion, we are one. Alpharius and Omega, at least one of them should come to the Eastern Galaxy to lead the war against me." Where could he be? He has other plans. If he were on Diamond Star, there would be no need for him to switch identities with Ceronius. Nimrod silently drew a conclusion in his mind, and as he was pondering it, Thibaut spoke. "That's it. I killed the enemy commander and reclaimed the power crystal that you bestowed upon Royal Court Baron." "You did not kill an unknown person," Nimrod said. "He is Ceronius, the third-ranked commander in the Alpha Legion, behind only First Captain Inchbeck and Captain of the Second Company, Machias He. His death was the key to the decisive victory in the battle. He is the supreme commander who controls all plans and secret communication methods. Without his coordination and command, the Alphas will fall into a situation of fighting their own battles. We just need to eliminate them one by one." Thibaut glanced at the massive corpse. No wonder he was able to kill a Royal Court Baron. Nimrod raised his hand, and the beyond characteristic of the pyromaniac fell into his palm. Ceronius was clearly aware of the special nature of the Beander characteristic. Open black lens bracket. Well, in large-scale wars, if no victory is won on the battlefield, and the Royal Court members complete the recovery, there is a possibility that various uniquely shaped Beander characteristics will be discovered. Close black lens bracket. Fortunately, the Beander characteristic cannot be used by outsiders who are not familiar with the Beander system. First, the recipient may not realize that it is used to prepare medicine. If the extracted Beander characteristic is not recovered in time, or if Beander is used for a long time and becomes mentally connected with a certain item, it may combine with nearby weapons or other items. Or perhaps his own spiritual imprint is too strong, which may directly form a Beander item. If one obtains the information but does not know how to isolate the Beander characteristic, it cannot be used to formulate a medicine. It is even more likely to take it back. Secondly, Beander characteristic requires additional ingredients to become a potion. Without the potion recipe, it's almost impossible to achieve this by sheer luck. Because each Beander characteristic has two corresponding auxiliary materials. However, if it is combined with non-potion ingredients or potion ingredients, the best outcome after drinking it is death. Finally, even if you succeed by sheer luck, you will still die if it is a potion of sequence 8 or higher, rather than sequence 9. The potion-making ingredients in the world of Warhammer are rarer, and the potions made are more potent, requiring a gradual ascent up the ladder. As Nimrod pondered, Primarch's attendant spoke up to report. "My lord, I have obeyed your command and delivered 3 new-style general cannons to the Lord of Armaments. He has already begun researching methods for secure interface connections and activating the use of the General's Cannon. Diamond Star's Great General Cannon, forged for Horus, not only originated in the Titan Foundry, but also shared many structural similarities with the Titan, including its control interface. Even for seasoned Techmarine professionals, operating the General Cannon is quite dangerous." Arsena Dun saw the Black Emperor nod slightly, took the box from his waist, released the seal on the spirit wall, and then reported. "My lord, during the 4th chapter's sweep of the Foundry occupied by the rebels, this crystal was discovered in the warehouse. The Royal Court monks, upon seeing it, felt its intense light pierce through their armor and realized its extraordinary nature. After checking the inventory records, they discovered that this type of diamond crystal is the reason why the planet is named and is also an important raw material for Forge World." Nimrod raised his hand, and the pure, luminous crystal fell into his palm. It was scalding hot to the touch, radiating a dazzling light and exuding a sacred aura. Mentor of Disorder gazes into the radiant spiritual light, matching the diamond in the palm with the patterns seen on the blasphemous slate. Pure white brilliance. Sun, pathway. The main material of Sequence 5, Priest of Light. Open black lens bracket. I never expected to gain something beyond Forge World and the Great General Cannon. With it, I finally have the last Sequence 5 potion ingredient I was missing, and I can finally train all the Sequence 5 Beyonders. Close black lens bracket. Priest of Light is one of the most powerful sequences during the Rise of Chaos. Well, if it weren't for the evolved Mentor of Disorder possessing the ability of willpower pressure, then one of them could also be ruled out. 999 I want to control the Iron Ring. In the 4th level of the Nation of Disorder space, Lord Wilshire of the 2nd chapter knelt on one knee amidst the black mist. "My lord, the news of Warmaster's betrayal has not caused much of a stir in the Iron Ring, and none of the factions are in a hurry to choose a side. Forge World's Tower Median was the first to declare continued allegiance to the Empire and dispatched a secondary legion to Istvan for support. This book is first published on Taiwan Novel Network twkcanon.com. Enjoy a super smooth reading experience with error-free and disordered chapters. Tower Median was born during the Great Crusade period, not the Old Knight era. In order to prevent Mars from taking over its resources, Forge World Phathon orchestrated a political maneuver, sending 1/3 of its population onto the exploration arc and dispatching them to the outskirts of the known universe. Thus, the new Forge World, Tower Median, was born. Glea subsequently pledged allegiance to the Emperor. Nimrod nodded. At this time, High Valaria was also clearly positioned, but its long-standing grudge against Glea erupted, so it naturally decided to follow Warmaster. However, because Nimrod had previously conquered and subsequently allied with High Valaria, the wars of Morning Star Titan Legion and Terror Titan Legion were smaller in scale. Therefore, the conflict between High Valaria and Glea did not escalate into a major conflict as I recall, but remained a conflict confined to their respective spheres of influence. With Order Shadow in control of High Valaria, the conflict between it and Glea is generally under control. Tell Chief Sage Unai 9 to immediately issue a declaration of allegiance to the Empire and demand that all parties clearly state their positions. Anyone who betrays the Empire will be immediately attacked with troops. To provide aid to a world under attack by rebels. Nimrod's eyes burned with ambition. I want to control the Iron Ring. I will obey your will. Wilshire respectfully complied. Gather all the notaries, Nimrod continued, and you shall proceed together to the polar glaciers. The ascension ritual for Priest of Light requires burying one's entire body in ice that would not normally melt in pure darkness, and then taking a magical potion. High Valaria's greatest resource is a unique liquid gas mixture extracted from seawater, which has extremely high corrosion properties. The only area with low corrosion is the polar glacier, which is also the main source of drinking water. I will grant you new strength. Wilshire's eyes gleamed with gold. Although he was the lord of the second chapter, he was still a viscount of the royal court in the inner court, while the other lords were all earls. Even within his chapter, 5 people, the chapter's chief apothecary, the techmarine, the librarian, and others, were earls of the royal court. As the youngest chapter master in the history of Order Shadow, Wilshire feels the pressure. He prayed fervently to the Black Emperor every day, and now he has finally received the Black Emperor's blessing. Black fog surged and engulfed Wilshire. He came to his senses and found himself back at the altar. Wilshire knelt devoutly at the altar, clasped his hands together in a fist, and prayed to the Black Emperor. Black Emperor, you are the Lord of Order. He prayed 11 times before slowly getting up. After Wilshire dismantles the spiritual wall in Euclidean rune with the ritual dagger, he issues a command to summon the other, notary. To the accompaniment of a melodious song, Black Eagle shuttles took off from the Song of Slaughter, joining the Relic-class battleships. The Radiance and other ships, aircraft formed a formation. The Black Eagle shuttle roared through the thick smoke, heading towards the planet's far north. The polar cyclone lashed against the Black Eagle shuttle, its outstretched wings trembling slightly, but the aircraft remained stable. Inside the cabin, the Order shadows savored jade berries while gazing at the approaching giant orbital elevator. High Valaria's drilling platform is buried deep beneath the ice, and the extracted pure water is piped into the air. The Eagle shuttle deflected its wings and descended in perfect unison. The landing gear was lowered, and groups of notary, dressed in black robes disembarked. First Captain Winterbourne and Captain of the Second Company Olivier walked at the front of the procession and came to Wilshire. My lord. Wilshire nodded. Come with me. He led the notary toward the gravity elevator, where Sage, the welcoming envoy, scanned Wilshire and the others with his prosthetic eye. Only one techmarine, with its servo arm retracted behind it, wore power armor, the others were all dressed in black robes. Lord of Light, I reminded you before. The lower we go, the colder it gets, the place you're going to is an extremely cold place. Believe me, it's no less impressive than the Fenris Glacier. We lost a sage and 493 servitors there while laying robots there. I understand. Wilshire's face beamed with a warm smile. Please open the road to that place for me. As per your request, the robots in this area will be temporarily shut down for an estimated period of 3 standard days. All surveillance equipment has been shut down. Thank you, Wilshire said, and the gravity elevator started up with a bang. A cold mist spread out, pattering onto the black robe, instantly creating a layer of frost. A golden light shone from Winterbourne's eyes and shot out. Golden light spread rapidly, enveloping the 168 Order shadows. Envoy Sage watched as the frost vanished rapidly, and the Order shadows calmly walked towards the gravity elevator, suddenly realizing something. Open black lens bracket psionic. Close black lens bracket. The gravity elevator roared down, with a fierce wind lashing around the cargo container, making a rumbling sound. Boom! The gravity elevator suddenly lurched and then abruptly stopped. Crackling sound. The loudspeaker emitted a popping sound, followed by intermittent sounds. Light, extreme cold airflow, servant repair, requires 12 hours. Wilshire frowned and looked at Techmarine. Can you solve this? I haven't seen the gravity technology and environmental maintenance system they use before, but I can give it a try, Techmarine replied. His hands were on the cogitator, and he was typing rapidly. Lines of binary code slide across the green screen. A moment later, he suddenly stopped. After thinking for a dozen seconds, Techmarine pulled out a key shaped like a mandala flower. He inserted the Roziki key into the interface and then quickly tapped it. Thump. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet trembled. Boom. The gravity elevator slowly started moving and descended again. How did you do that? Came the questioning voice of Ambassador Sage over the loudspeaker. The systems we use are all unique. The technology discovered by the Lord of the Forge, Techmarine said, putting away the Roziki key. Envoy Sage sensed that Techmarine was unwilling to explain in detail and did not press the matter further. The gravity elevator roared down, finally coming to a stop with a bang. Wilshire stepped out of the gravity elevator, glanced around at the spiderweb-like tunnel and the stopped drill bits, and then gave the order. Techmarine checked the surveillance equipment one by one, and together with Winterbourne and Olivier, he set up a temporary altar. Notary, dug ice caves to prepare the ritual site. 3 hours later, the three Wilshires returned, each holding a bottle of golden potion in their hands, as if they were carrying a sacred relic. They arrived at the 3 triangular ice caves they had dug, then removed their black robes and jumped into the caves. 6 Order shadows stepped forward and poured ice into the ice cave, completely burying the 3 of them. A golden light flashed in Wilshire's eyes as he dispelled the blessing of the veteran, light supplicant. As the blessing effect wore off, a chilling aura swept over Order Shadow's body. His body stiffened, and even his thoughts froze. Wilshire found the golden, hot potion in his hand incredibly tempting, and he resisted the urge to drink it immediately. Praise be to my lord, and thank you for your blessings. After thanking the Black Emperor, he tilted his head back and drank the golden potion. The medicine burned my tongue and made my teeth feel like they were on fire. The potion slid down, and a blinding golden light shone from his throat, illuminating the icy cavern of darkness. Wilshire felt as if he had been thrown into a star, its intense light scorching every inch of his skin, its flames igniting every cell in his body. Amidst the excruciating pain of being burned alive, the glacier, which had remained frozen for millennia, slowly melted, slapping against his body. Wilshire felt a slight coolness, which lessened the burning sensation. As the ice rapidly disappeared, his pain lessened slightly, and countless golden lights surged in his mind, with countless pieces of information flashing wildly. Suddenly, 2 miniature suns lit up in Wilshire's eyes. He leaned back with his arms outstretched, as if embracing the sun. A magnificent, pure, and blazing beam of light fell from the sky above. The ice suddenly evaporated, and, Priest of Light, leapt out of the ice cave. Greater than 1,000 I will surely present you with the fragments of Magnus's soul. In the 4th dimension of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod sits atop his throne. He bestowed upon the 2nd chapter and other chapters the Notary, Potion of Universal Ascension, giving each division of the Legion a varying number of Priest of Light. On the one hand, they are the backbone of the fight against chaos. On the other hand, compared to the Mentor of Disorder, they can also purify items from the corrosion. The team led by Priest of Light has a purification efficiency far exceeding that of the current oil men. Nimrod recalls that it took the Ultramarines 5 years to complete the purification and technical exorcism of the Gloriana-class battleship after acquiring the Ashes Chronicle of the Word-Bearers. Open black lens bracket. At this point, I hope readers will remember our domain name, twkcanon.com. Read good books from Taiwan, select Taiwanese novels. It's super convenient, close black lens bracket. Of course, if it is a warship blessed by the 4 vendors like the Vengeful Spirit, even the combined efforts of the ecclesiarchy priests and oil men would be difficult to purify. Perhaps we need a paragon. Pathway Sequence 4, Alchemist, requires the infusion of a new soul to replace the ancient machine spirit, combined with the unshadowed purification of powers related to corrosion and corruption. Just as Nimrod was about to return to the real world, he suddenly heard a phantom prayer in his ear. He extended his spirituality, touching the ever-expanding and contracting red and black spiritual sphere, and then saw Hasik of white scars. Noyan Khan knelt on the altar. With a thought, Nimrod pulled Hasik into the Nation of Disorder. Hasik looked at the Black Emperor, who sat high on the throne, with awe. My lord, by your revelation, I have discovered the outpost established by the Alpha and reported it to the Great Khan. Great Khan acted swiftly, destroying outposts and significantly accelerating the clearing of the remaining Ulnar greenskins. Subsequently, we broke free of the Alpha Legion's blockade and re-established contact with the Empire. Alpha established numerous space stations in the void and deployed psionic arrays that interfered with Astropath's psionic communications, isolating Shandex. Upon learning that the Wild Wolves had destroyed Prospero, Jagatai was greatly shocked and immediately led his fleet to investigate the truth. After arriving at Prospero's orbit, Great Khan ordered us to remain in orbit while he led Qinsha and other members of his personal guard to the surface to investigate. Hasek finally lifted the data slate with both hands, saying, Tagan, based on the revelation you gave me, has devised a plan to capture the fragments of Magnus's soul. Nimrod raised his hand, and the data slate fell into his grasp. He fiddled with the text, quickly reading through it, then nodded slightly. Good, let's proceed according to his plan. A bronze mask appeared out of thin air in Nimrod's hand, and with a thought, it fell into Hasek's hands along with data slate. Hasek caught the bronze mask, immediately feeling the icy coldness in his fingers, and a shrill scream echoed in his mind. Countless spirit-eating bees on Prospero died from the orbital bombardment by wolves, and they became ghosts after their deaths. They pose a considerable threat even to Jagatai. Nimrod remembered that Jagatai and Qinsha's attacks were not very effective against the spirit-eating bees. Jagatai even fell during the battle and was buried deep underground. There he encountered a fragment of Magnus's soul, who told him the truth and that now was the time to make a choice. Jagatai did not side with his friend Horus Lupercal, but chose to remain loyal to the Empire. Upon returning to the surface, he and Qinsha received help from River Avita, which allowed them to escape the spirit-eating bees and return to the flagship. This mask is the bane of undead creatures. It will contain any spirit-eating bees you encounter. Once activated, the Sequence 2 Death Console mask will affect those around him and may even take Astarte's life. He rarely uses it under normal circumstances. But in Prospero, that's when the Death Console mask comes into play. Magnus's soul fragments are similar to the Wraith state and can also be contained within them. As Nimrod spoke, a glint of light flashed in his eyes as he sent the relevant information to Hasek. My lord, with the mystical item you have given me, I will surely present you with the fragments of Magnus's soul. You have another mission. As Nimrod spoke, a data crystal appeared in his hand. The survivors of Thousand Suns, led by Sul Kontep, are hiding in an underground facility that Order Shadow has created for them in the wilderness. You must find them. Tell them that you are here on my orders to help them. Hasek caught the data crystal, saying, Follow your will. Black mist churned and enveloped his body. Hasek came to his senses and found himself back at the altar of the Qingza. Call. The entire altar was bathed in a ghostly green light, and an icy chill seeped into his body. Hasek quickly picked up the ceremonial knife forged from even-numbered black gold. Spiritual energy overflowed from his fingertips, enveloping the bronze mask as the ritual knife was swung. Bang! With a short, sharp crack, the chilling aura dissipated. Hasek left the altar, pushed aside the great door, and immediately saw Tagan Khan standing guard in front of the door, a curved power sword at his waist. Lord Hasek. Tagan glanced at the mask enveloped in spiritual energy. This is the powerful mystical item bestowed by Lord Nimrod must be sealed away and can only be activated when needed, Hasek said. Do you remember what I told you? The task Lord Nimrod asks you to devise is a ritualistic task that you must complete to gain new power. It is both a test for you and a necessary process to obtain higher levels of power. Of course, Lord Nimrod also considered the danger of capturing a powerful being alive, namely your target, Magnus's soul fragment. He bestowed the mask upon us to help us accomplish this. Tagan's heart raced when he heard, Nimrod. Upon hearing that Lord Nimrod had actually bestowed this item upon him, his breathing quickened and his eyes gleamed. Thank you for your concern, Lord Nimrod. I will never let you down. Hasek reiterated the mosque's abilities and precautions to Tagan, and then said. You should refine your plan first. I'll go and find out what's going on and look for an opportunity to get to the surface. After parting ways with Tagan, Hasek went to the bridge. After taking his seat on the throne woven from ancient bark and leather, his gaze swept over the 23 Khans under his command, finally settling on Sheban. Sheban, is there any news of the Great Khan? No, I sent a message to the Bladestorm a standard hour ago to inquire, but I still haven't received any valuable information, Sheban said worriedly. The Roche matrix continuously scans the surface, but can see nothing but black. The entire planet is scarred and battered, like a dead planet. The Earth's crust is still moving violently, and the radiation level is very high. He walked over to the cogitator and brought up the holographic image. In addition, the ether reading instrument has just confirmed that there is a barrier enveloping the upper atmosphere. It is composed of some kind of etheric field, and it is extremely large. Hosik's eyes lit up. We must go to the surface and support Great Khan. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.